We are live. We've got the boy, the man, the him, the bim, Paggigalo.
Well, you're about to call me himbo. I don't know.
To be honest, you're like about 30% too smart and 70% not buff enough.
It's true. COVID made it so I stopped working out, and I still haven't gone back.
Bruh. But yeah, I've committed the cardinal sin of reading One Piece.
Yeah.
And then I committed the even more cardinal sin of catching up.
Yeah. We got a bunch of topics to bring up today, so we're just gonna be super hyper nerds today.
Yeah. So my plan is to just EV train in the background, just some incidental mons while we're talking.
The Venomoth raid, so I'm probably just gonna the Venomoth outbreak, so I'm probably just gonna try to do that.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, before the ancient tomes, we speak of the ancient tomes of One Piece.
Yeah. Before that, we have to talk about the modern hot mess of Hunter x Hunter. Good God, I'm so upset.
Tell me your feelings.
Okay, so I have been dreading this chapter. I've been dreading it. Death flags out the wazoo for Nobunaga. They stepped into this grungy saw
It looks
set.
the way the art is done for their hideout is really well done.
Oh yeah, for the record, the art on these last chapters has been sick. The art in Hunter x Hunter is actually pretty good.
It's really good
from what I've read.
When the man has 4 years to design the chapter.
Yeah. 4 years and a lot of really good effort. But yeah, so I've been dreading this chapter for weeks. And now that it's here, I'm just like, well, okay. Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, the chapter set itself up to be kind of a confrontation, and it was handled very smartly by our main characters, as I like to say, our the leads that we are following.
Oh yeah, both of whom I am in love with.
I like the new bromance. Nobunaga's got another bromance.
Yeah.
The character cannot help himself.
Yeah, the only thing that would make this chapter better was if Nobunaga was in his casual clothes. Because, boy howdy, does casual clothes Nobunaga look hot. He hits all of my buttons.
I just can't wait till this arc's moved on from the High League and we get Nobunaga asking Kolo if Henry can join this fight. It's gotta happen.
If they live long enough to ask.
Yeah. No, they are very, very well done chapters with two very intelligent characters. Kind of feeling out the enemy base. And this is something that I've been preparing for the stream. Not really preparing, more so, but sitting on my ass watching Yu Yu Hakusho, which is, if you don't know, it's Togashi's first series, or not first series, but his series before Hunter x Hunter.
Yeah, one of those. Me and my wife have been meaning to watch it, but just kind of haven't yet.
Yeah, and it's really good, but it's unlike Hunter x Hunter, where the strength of Hunter x Hunter comes from its subversion almost of shonen tropes. Yu Yu Hakusho was back when shonen tropes weren't entirely established fully, so it's kind of the establishment
of a grade A example of them.
And they're half of the series is pretty much not half, but a third the series is the Dark Tournament, which is essentially the blueprint for series to follow to do tournament sagas afterwards. So
Mhm.
it is very well done, but it is definitely. I just finished the saga, the arc after the Dark Tournament. In that one, it's obviously like Togashi like falling into some pitfalls of shonen stuff that obviously didn't exist as much back then, so it's not really falling into pitfalls we created them.
Yeah.
But it's like also, you can see the elements of his later works starting to come to light because the saga that happens after that, which is Chapter Black, which I don't know if you've heard mention of it before.
I have no idea, honestly.
So it deals kind of with like, are we the monsters or are demons? It's like, oh, okay, so you can see the Chimera Ant arc starting to the seeds of the Chimera Ant arc eventually starting to form. And
That is always really fun.
yeah, and I never want to say this. What I'm about to say is going to sound rude. Kind of glad Yu Yu Hakusho ended, not prematurely, but ended, so that we could have Hunter x Hunter, because Yu Yu Hakusho is very formulaic. It's very like power ups out of the ass kind of like all the time, and like that kind of thing. It's like your power up comes from your power with your friends and stuff like that. And it's like I'm very glad that ended because Hunter x Hunter feels way better. The power system in Yu Yu Hakusho is basically just like spirit energy and demon energy and that kind of thing. And it's like your power level and that kind of thing. So it's very like Dragon Ball and stuff like that, where it's
Jumption v Jumption.
Yeah, where in Hunter x Hunter, it's probably one of the most well-defined power structures in a fictional media form. So it's like very happy. And I don't know if you saw recently during his exhibition, actually, because he had an exhibition in Japan celebrating his works. And in his exhibition, he showed off this new Nen chart that has kind of revealed some new things about Nen that people haven't known before. I don't know if you saw anything
yes, I actually I watched one. I watched a YouTube video on it.
Yeah, so it turns out people can be like halfway or like a percentage towards a different Nen affinity than what their base Nen affinity is. So you don't have to be like specifically an enhancer.
What is your funniest revelation from that? Like, what is like the one that like you were so glad that you know this now?
I'm not so glad I know this, but it's very interesting to look at is that Meruem is like an emitter. He's not like an enhancer, like super powerful, like strong. He's an emitter, which is it's a very strange thing to see because emitters aren't usually like the strong and like punch you in the face type. And there are a couple others that are interesting, like Miluki Zoldyck, the fat Zoldyck, being leaning towards specialist.
That is my favorite. Yeah. Miluki Zoldyck, 5% specialist.
Yeah, leaning towards specialist, which is pretty interesting.
So funny. Freaking 5%. Why bother having it?
Well,
I love it.
I mean, clearly there has to be a reason, right? Togashi has some kind of idea in mind when he puts him there.
I know, but it's just I love it so much. It's so funny to me.
No, there's some other ones that are pretty interesting, but it also like interesting to note. I think all the emitters on the that were on the Nen chart are all left-handed, which is funny because in one of the more recent chapters they're like, oh, emitters seem to be left-handed or whatever, and it's Togashi seems to be proving that.
Frickin' Bonolanov or whatever his name was.
So yeah, that's just some interesting things, some concept they're bringing up with Yu Yu Hakusho and stuff as well. Yeah, I recommend Yu Yu. It's pretty good. The Dark Tournament is very long and it suffers a bit from that like Seinfeld effect where it's like I've seen this a million times before because because everything has copied it. It's like everything has imitated, and it's not like it's the first or it's even the best, but like everything has done a similar style to the Dark Tournament arc that it's like the Dark Tournament arc just feels so unnecessarily long, and it's like I've seen this 50 times before. Oh, also, fun. You'll like to know the So Yu Yu Hakusho, because I originally watched the sub. I'm rewatching it on the dub. I think the dub is actually
Mm-hmm.
better. Nah,
Oh,
not
that's
pulling hairs. I think the dub is better, and from what I've seen from online communities, they also agree that the dub is better. So,
that is very interesting.
yeah, the dub's
I know
actually pretty good.
yeah, I know that the first episode of Yu Yu Hakusho was just incredible because me and my wife watched it a couple months ago because she's watched it and
I
really likes Yu Yu Hakusho.
on the
I've just
first,
never actually
yeah,
watched
so I rewatched it on the first episode. I was brought to tears. The first episode's
it.
very
Yeah,
good.
me too.
I mean,
It is.
Togashi
So good.
knows how to write things. So put it that way. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
no, like that. Yeah, that whole first episode very well done. But we ended up talking more about Yu Yu than Hunter x Hunter.
Sorry, gotta start
Oops,
somewhere.
my fault. But yeah, no, Hunter x Hunter. The last chapter comes next week. So, and fun fact, since update from the comment from the editor was that this chapter and the next 30 chapters were planned by Togashi 4 years ago. So up to
Which definitely checks out, especially considering just how effortlessly it picks up from where it left off.
yeah, so up to 430 have all been planned since 4 years ago. So, and I think we're gonna go on a break for a bit, knowing what's happened with Togashi, and also like just he usually does 10
Yeah.
chapters anyway. So I think we're gonna go on a break for a bit, and then we're gonna come back possibly sometime next year. So, which is a lot better than waiting 4 whole years. So I mean,
Yeah.
but yeah, this is the end of the 10 chapter burst. We'll be going on break. So have you haven't you caught up right as this was starting back up? So how do you
Yeah.
you're gonna be on break for the first time?
I'm really excited. I feel like I'm not really a Hunter x Hunter fan until I've experienced the hiatus.
Yeah, no, it's
Besides, like the self-imposed hiatus, right in the middle of the Khmer Ant arc when we were watching it because we could not get a time to watch it with our roommate
yeah,
and
no,
had eventually just gave up and watched it ourselves.
the hiatus giveth it taketh. You know, the hiatus has given me the series to reread multiple times.
Honestly, I might read Hunter x Hunter from the beginning.
It has very minor differences that are very interesting. Like the fact that the Oreo is shown in the manga to be stronger than everyone else, but they kind of shy away from that in the anime. I'm not bitter about that or anything.
I am.
So yeah, there are a
I love
couple
the
of
Oreo
minor
so much.
differences. There are a couple minor differences in the manga, but nothing really too major. There's like one chapter involving when they first find out the troop is from Meteor City in the York New. That kind of does a bit more exposition is kind of more interesting. That they cut from
Mm-hmm.
the anime. So there's that as well. I'm trying to think of other stuff. Not much that I can think of off the top of my head. But yeah, it's not much. But it's a good read. Especially now that the panels are probably cleaned up that you can read. And not the initial releases. The initial release of Greed Island and Chimera Ant did not have the best artwork. Some very rough panels.
4 panels.
But
Yeah.
anyway,
So
that's not the only series I read again on hiatus. As back when the final saga was starting for one Piece, it went on hiatus for a month, and I reread the whole series. Man,
in a month,
yeah,
did did you do any sleeping or reading?
One Piece. The thing you gotta realize
Actually,
about One
wait.
Piece is the panels early on, and we'll get to discussing this a little bit more. But the panels early on, like up till a point, aren't dense. They're very much not dense.
That's Yeah, that's true. And
Let's the
actually, now
panels
that I think
breathe.
about it, because I started 3 weeks before. Yeah, 3 weeks before Scarvo came out. So it's been so I just today it's been like 1 month and 3 weeks about that since so I guess it took me a little over a month to read One Piece.
Yeah, and like the series I compare it to is Kingdom, which is a faux history manga. It's seinen manga, and it's pretty good. Give it a read if you're into that kind of stuff. Um, and Kingdom is about 700 chapters long at this point, and Kingdom took me much longer to read than One Piece, which is like over 300 chapters longer. The reason why is because Kingdom's like a battle seinen like kind of manga where it's like each battle they have to describe like how they outplayed their opponents and stuff like that. So it's like
So
the
it's like very
difference is
dense.
One Piece is very One Piece doesn't have a lot of stuff going on in its pants. It's very open. Let's the actions speak for itself in the early
Yeah,
parts. In the early part, where else is the money?
in the early part.
So we're gonna talk.
Definitely did censor.
We're gonna talk a couple of things about One Piece. First off, thoughts. The big question that everybody always has on their mind: thoughts pre-time skip versus post-time skip.
Pre-time skip versus post-time skip.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's a hard question to answer. Because it's like, in some ways, it feels like there's so much more pre-time skip than post-time skip to think about.
There's more arcs, but
For
there
me,
are not more
yeah, but like
pages.
I actually, because like I was thinking about it, because like talking to brother-in-law's wife, because she used to read One Piece, we did like a Christmas thing the other day, and we're talking to her about it. She's like, yeah, I used to read it like a long time ago, but I dropped off, or but like I got caught up to Ennis Lobby, and then I like never got back. I'm like, oh yeah, that's like right around the time skip, right? So I looked at what chapter that was, and I realized it was like nowhere near as far forward as I thought it would be.
Yeah, and we'll go through the arcs here in a second and
Yeah.
stuff, but like pre versus post time skip is a very different beast for One Piece.
Yes. They're almost like different series. It
Yeah,
feels like not quite, but like pretty close.
yeah, and what and I it's gonna sound like I'm gonna be in a Debbie Downer here, but I'm not. I do like the series a lot, but I definitely like the pre time skip versus the post time skip, and it's for the reasons that I'll explain here in a minute. Like it's hard to
Yeah.
put words to my thoughts entirely, but like pre time skip, the themes that defined the series and got me interested in the series from pre time skip was well written characters, a world that builds on itself every arc, and characters interacting with each other in between or even during the arcs that like and you get this interaction between these characters that you enjoy. Post time skip
Yes.
doesn't have that same kind of feeling to it, I guess to say.
Yeah. I think you know, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think that yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. It's really hard for me to say which I prefer because to me they feel like different enough beasts that like I wouldn't really say that I think one is better than the other, that I like prefer one to the other. But that also might be something that changes if I ever go and reread One Piece,
Yeah,
which considering that I've read it once, like will probably happen at some point.
yeah, and there are definitely for during my reread, I definitely appreciated some arcs more. Like Dressrosa, I liked a lot more on my reread. Um, Fishman Island, I liked a lot more on my reread. So like a lot of the post time skip ended up benefiting me from rereading it again. Being like, okay, I understand now, kind of a little bit more what it was going for and stuff like that. But here's a question I want to ask you.
Okay.
Do you remember post time skip? Do you remember at any point where we were just on the ship with the crew for like a couple chapters?
for a couple chapters.
Yeah. Because pre-time skip, there are a couple of places you can mention where it's like, okay, we were just here with the crew on the ship for this, like between these islands and between these islands. Post-time skip, it's kind of hard to think of.
No, not really. There aren't any, because like there are a couple of like medium-sized arcs in there, but there aren't any like small arcs like that.
Yeah, and it's like the only time I can think of the crew interacting on the ship is in Fishman Island when they're going down in the bubble. And they're just kind of going down and they're like interacting. But even then, we aren't really given them interactions with each other. We literally have a panel where Luffy goes to Zoro. So, hey, so what did you do in your 2 years? And Zoro goes, oh, let me tell you. And then it pans away and then we go to that action. And it's like,
yeah.
It's like, so
I
obviously there's a change in direction with the series, but it's like, why can't we have those moments anymore?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think that another thing that we kind of don't have anymore, or that like, or just another thing to like add on to that is that what am I trying to say here? Yeah, so we do still get a little bit of that, but it's not on the ship anymore, and it's kind of we get the same amount that we used to, I think, in terms of the post arc feasts.
Mm.
But even then, I think we still did like about the same amount of character interactions with that, like those like post arc feasts.
Yeah,
Which still happen, but it's also not as much.
because
But like
there's so
we don't
many
get as much on the ship,
characters.
but also yeah, but not only is it because there's so many characters, it's also because half of the time all the characters are split up.
Yes, and that's necessary for him to
Even
write a
between
story
arcs.
that makes sense, kinda, is to have the characters be
Oh
split up
yeah.
every time, but it's also at the same time,
Especially
like,
with how dense all of this all these narratives are.
right. So when we cut to, like, the split between, Whole Cake and Wano, and, like, them having to split up the crew, my thought was, why couldn't we have those character interactions with those halves of the crew, though? Like, why couldn't we have those halves of the crew talking to each other and being like, oh, well, here's what I think. It's like we didn't have any of that.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's a perfect opportunity. You split the crew in half. They're going to different destinations for the moment. Have them talk to
One
each
second.
other.
Hey there, Amy. What's up? No, I'm all good. I ended up eating at work. Oh, well, thank you very much. Alexa gets off at 9:30, so if you guys are still going, we might stop by after. But all right, I really appreciate you calling. Thank you. Bye. All right, sorry about that. My mother-in-law was calling. There's food like over next door.
Ooh.
I ain't going though, not until Alexa gets off work.
So,
But yeah. So pick up your thought.
you have any thought? Really, I'm just harping on this, like, crew interactions points. It's something that I really miss.
Yeah. So I definitely agree with you, and I definitely really miss it. In particular, another thing that like I had started to notice, but it didn't bother me at the time with where I was until you pointed it out to me because I didn't realize it was going to be a consistent thing. But was just how much Sanji sucks post time skip.
And I tried to not like, because he has a whole arc basically devoted to him, which you hadn't even gotten
Which
to yet.
he's actually really
Which
good
is
in
really good.
for
Yeah,
most of it.
it's really good.
But then he sneaks into the women's restrooms and then gets found out because of a freaking nosebleed. It upsets me.
Yeah, no, it's annoying, especially when he has such a good arc devoted to him and his character development, and we see that character development pay off even in Wano, and it's like, but we
Yeah.
still have him going into a women's restroom.
Yeah.
Like,
It's like, and the reason that I kind of want to segue from there is because I think Sanji loses out on it in losing those smaller ship character interactions.
yeah, there's a couple characters I think specifically have disbenefited from the fact that we don't get slower moments with them. Sanji's one of them.
Yeah,
Usopp is another big one.
yeah, definitely. Those
Chopper is, in my opinion, also a big one. Where these
yeah,
characters, we just don't get to see them do anything anymore.
yeah. We don't get to see them relax, which is a real
Yeah.
bummer because one of the best things about One Piece is its relaxed tone.
My favorite parts of One Piece, first reading, were in between the arcs when we'd see the reactions of all the side characters reacting to what happened in the world, and then all the main characters talking to each other about what has happened and what they've done, that kind of thing. Like post Enies Lobby, that was probably one of my favorite parts of the series, just because we get to see all these, like the whole world reacting to what just happened, you know?
Yeah.
And it wasn't just like, oh, let's pan to the island and see them for half a second, like shocked or whatever. It's like, no, we're going to these characters. They're gonna have their little moments. We're going back to Nami's island, and
Hmm.
we're gonna see her surrogate dad like be angry at her photo, and it's like, oh, it's a funny moment. It's
Yeah.
like, you know, we miss out on that a bit in the post time skip world.
Yeah, definitely, and it's pretty sad. Um,
But we're not here to talk depression. That's not what.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because by and
But at the
large,
same time, post time skip is still really good.
yeah, it's still very good. It's I have my issues with it, and there are some other issues that I'm sure I'll bring up. But it's like, I still at the end of the day,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
reading
yeah,
it and I'm enjoying the series, and I'm still having a good time. So it's like,
yeah.
oh well.
And I still think that some of these storytelling things that he has done in the post time skip has been like some of the best I've
Yeah.
like experienced.
Hmm.
Like so I guess some of like these standout moments for me like post time skip because we already kind of discussed some of the pre time skip ones
Yeah.
the last time we talked about it. But like so for me like in the post time skip some of the moments that really stood out to me were Dress Rosa, which I know is kind of like an obvious like from like the impression that I got pre like actually reading One Piece at all. The impression I got was that like Dress Rosa was like the pinnacle of it
So
in a lot of ways.
how people feel about Dressrosa is a little mixed.
Okay, oh, it is a little
The
mixed.
general consensus, yeah, because like,
Okay.
and we'll get to it when we talk. I'll hold my breath and keep going. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, okay, yeah. But so I absolutely love Dressrosa. In particular, Doflamingo was, incredible
Yeah.
as like an antagonist. And it was also notable for me because he was the first antagonist that felt built up outside of his own arc.
Um,
'Cause-
there are a couple, but obviously, like it starts to pick up. Obviously, in the post exit with that kind of stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like so like that was like a big thing for me. Another thing that really stood out to me was and surprised me was just how much I liked Big Mom.
Oh, Big Mom's fucking awesome. I
She is
love Big Mom
so
so much.
she is so good.
Such
Such a
such a
good
well
character.
written villain in Whole Cake. We'll not talk about her appearance in Wano.
Oh wait, really? Because I loved her in Wano
I
too.
have some opinions. I like some of the stuff in Wano, but
Okay, okay,
the memory forgetfulness is kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
okay. You know what? That's fair because memory forgetfulness is just so much. But yeah. So I was surprised at just how much I ended up really liking Big Mom. I
Mhm.
like her more than I like Kaido.
I like well because Kaido isn't. We'll get to Kaido. Kaido is
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
one of my biggest disappointments in the series, but we'll get to that. um,
How much I like Big Mom. What was the other thing? There was like one other thing that like I really appreciated. What was it? I'm trying to think. Oh, so we finally get to see Luffy training in the post time skip.
Mm-hmm.
Well, specifically in we see it in Whole Cake and uh, Whole Cake and in Wano,
Yeah.
because like previously in post time skip, Luffy training was a surprise. It was
Yeah, in
like a
pre-time skip.
surprise
Yeah.
moment in Water 7
Yeah, because he like it's like, oh, I
when
have
he
gear 2 and I
unveils
have
like
gear
his
3, and it's like,
yeah,
whoa,
when he
you know.
unveils the deer. And you suddenly realize that like, oh, Luffy has like actually been training this whole time.
Yeah, off screen
Because
he's
like you
been
did a
doing
few
stuff.
moments of like yeah, like you did a few moments of like Zolo showing that he is like trying to train, but like that was a really big and in my opinion really good and well done like surprising moment in Water 7
Yeah, where it's like
where like you
Luffy.
realize that
Luffy realizes he needs to train, probably affected
yeah,
by the Arabasta arc or whatever, but
yeah.
he realizes he needs to train a little bit in the background, and he does. And then that ultimately hits its head when we get to the time skip where he realizes that he needs to train a lot.
Oh. Well, okay, so my reading of that was actually a little bit different.
Okay.
Where the impression I got is that that's something that Luffy has been doing the whole time. Um, because it was like to me like Luffy is always like this carefree guy, but it's like in that moment when he like unveils like a whole new thing, you realize that oh, Luffy's actually been training really hard this whole time.
Yeah.
That was the impression I
Well,
got
that's the
from it.
whole. Luffy has been training hard his whole life, and that's kind of the thing with the rubber fruit is that with most other people it would have been nigh ineffective because they wouldn't have
Yeah.
put in the work, which we'll get to the fucking. I there's a lot of things I
Oh,
don't like about Wano as you're now being revealed.
yeah. I yeah, I think that I I like what they did in the I like what ends up happening with Luffy. I don't know if that was the right place for it to happen,
I'll get there. We'll
so to
get
speak.
there. We'll get
Yeah,
there.
yeah, we'll get there. We'll
We'll
get
get
there.
there.
Um,
I'm just thinking about it. It makes me laugh.
yeah, but yeah. So I really like the getting to see Luffy's training and like the whole like him like he is using not like he so like before like Water 7 and in the time skip we realize that Luffy is someone who does actually train in between arcs and in Wano and in Whole Cake we get to see him actively using his life and death experiences as training, which were things that I really liked. In particular, the fight with the Candy Dum Dum guy. Whatever, forget his name, but I absolutely love him. Uh,
Yeah. What's his
Big
name?
Mom's son.
Yes. What's his name? I know who you're talking about. Donut guy. Yeah.
Yeah, so I really liked getting to see that.
What's his name? I know exactly who you're talking about, but that's like one of the best fights in the series. Yeah. So it's a really great fight, and it shows Luffy's growth and his intelligence as a fighter, as opposed to his,
Hmm.
you know, his normal intelligence.
Yeah, which is it's Whole Cake Island is so good.
Okay, very good. Yeah. No, I think it's my favorite place.
Okay,
Speaking
and
of
then
favorites, oh, you still going? You still going?
yeah, okay, yeah, and then I think that was it for like really big standout things for me to talk about.
Okay.
Like I have a lot more to talk about in general, like
Yeah. No, I mean we have plenty to talk about.
but yeah,
There's so much to the series, you know.
yeah, there's 1,066 chapters or whatever.
So speaking of favorites, now that you have the benefit of the whole series, what's your favorite arc?
Favorite arcs. Okay, so hmm, let me think about it. Because like if I'm like to rank my favorite arcs, I think my favorite, like thinking back on it, like which arc did I like enjoy and like the most? I think I would have to put I would have to put number one as Water 7.
Okay.
I'd probably put number two as probably number two is Whole Cake, maybe. And then I'd probably put number three at Dressrosa. But those are very tentative. Those are just
Okay.
like
Yeah.
I'm searching my feelings, and that's what I say.
Yeah. I mean, I'm similar. I'm definitely first Water 7 / Jenny's Lobby. Amazing. Like, after that's probably Impel Down through Marineford, kinda. Or
Yeah,
probably Sabati through Freaker. Like, that whole arc is just so good.
yeah.
Um,
I'd count Sabati with that.
and then, like, prior to that, I'd get into the weird ones. I think my third, after, like, even though I just put, like, 4 arcs in the one spot, but, like, my third would probably be, like, Syrup Village. Which we'll get talking about that real soon.
Syrup Village. Which one was that?
That's Usopp's.
Oh, that one is so good.
And then like fourth is like Fishman, and then from there, like I have some opinions.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we'll get started though, talking through the arcs if you want to.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you thinking just go like arc by arc?
Yeah, we'll start with like the overall sagas and like their arcs that are contained within. So,
Okay, okay.
first big saga is the East Blue. Starts with the Romance Dawn, 7 chapters. Little Luffy start and interactions with Kobe. Basically the big
Yeah.
and
Really, like
meeting
I
Zoro.
said, yeah. So I think, like I said, like the first time I started talking about One Piece, is that the one thing that stood out to me is just how excellent it starts out.
Yeah.
Like right off the bat.
Yeah.
Like Shanks as a character, just like incredibly like strong, like just incredibly strong introduction. Like like it's a pretty standard shonen thing to have like a strong like moral figure that's like a surrogate father to just kind of like serve as like their guiding light through the series.
Yeah.
And Shanks is just a prime example of that in that first chapter.
Shanks
Kobe
is really
is
good.
adorable.
Kobe's great.
Yeah, Kobe's adorable.
Turns into
I
a
love that
completely
he
different
comes back.
character.
Yeah, so funny.
him and
Oh, that
him and
makes me so
Halmepo.
happy.
Completely 180 character arc for that character.
Yeah, which is just good.
And then Zoro, I think, has a really good introduction.
Yeah. Where was the moment that you realized that the title cards were plot relevant? When did you have that realization?
Maybe like halfway through the series. It was a while.
Okay, because I can remember the moment that I realized it. Because the first time was the first time I like really like paid attention to them, because I was obviously looking at all of them.
Yeah.
But the first time I paid attention to them was when I had an emotional reaction to one.
Which one?
Which was
That you told me about this a little bit.
yeah, it was, forget his name, but you remember the hypnotist
Django.
from the Usopp Island arc, Django. So in his little arc, where he makes the decision to erase or to hypnotize away the memory of him out of his like rival dancer, because his rival dancer was a Navy man.
Yeah, him and the Navy
so
man
they couldn't have a
who became
relationship.
friends, and he hypnotized him so he couldn't, so he would forget him. Basically.
Yeah, so I had an emotional reaction to that because, like, of course I did. It was an incredible moment. And then the moment I realized that those are plot relevant that made me scream was I think it was right after Alabasta. They were on a ship with lines.
Yes.
and I was just so upset.
Yeah, they just because they both essentially became Navy little peons, and
Yeah,
they work for Kina, I think, one of the vice admirals.
yeah, which is
We never. We'll
so
talk
good.
about the Navy and vice admirals. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
It seems like I have a lot of bones to pick with this series or something.
Yeah, really funny considering the lack of bones in the main character.
He
Did you
has
pick
the
them all out of
bones,
him?
but they're just rubber, or they would be.
Oh yeah, that's right. He ate the dum dum fruit.
They would be. So anyway, what I wanted to mention about Romance Dawn real quick.
What about that bone?
How did Shanks
Yeah.
lose an arm? Obviously, Oda plans a lot of stuff in advance, but he did not have hockey plans, and we'll get more into hockey as we move on with the series. He did not have
Yeah.
hockey plans. With
At least
the
not at that point.
with the advent of hockey, it makes literally no sense that Shanks could have lost his arm there. There is no world where Shanks loses an arm there if hockey existed at the beginning of this series.
Yeah. Although Shanks wasn't an emperor at that point, right? Was he even like a Grand Line level pirate at that point?
It's confusing because it wasn't that long between that happening and Shanks being an emperor and like being
Oh yeah, that's true.
one of the most powerful people on the seas. So like
That was like what, 6 or 7 years maybe?
yeah, and it's like usually we're looking at our main characters here, and they grow a lot in the years that we've seen them. But usually characters don't grow that fast, and that's another bone I have to pick with the series, since apparently that's all I can do. Usually characters don't grow that fast, as we see most of the emperors are like very old and have taken like decades to build their empires. So it's like
Yeah.
usually you don't just pop up in a couple of years and like, whoop. But then again, he was called an upstart by people like Whitebeard and stuff. So like, who knows? It's not really that important. It's just a thing to think about. Like, how did Shanks lose that arm? That doesn't really make sense. But moving on.
Yeah, probably write in a justification if I really tried, but I also don't know if I should.
Moving on to the next arc, Orange Town. It's where we meet Nami and Buggy.
The most important character of the series.
Yeah, Buggy. It's funny that we had, within the first 20 chapters, we had two Emperors of the Sea fighting each other.
Yeah.
It's really messed up power scaling.
Think about it. 3 of the Emperors of the Sea are within like the first 20 chapters.
Cool.
Can you believe it? Can you believe that?
But Orange Town's a nice little arc. In my opinion, it's just kind of like the snoozer of the early ones. There's some interesting stuff like the dog. The dog has a nice little
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, it's definitely the blueprint for all the arcs to come.
It's like we meet Nami, but it's not really like we don't really meet Nami yet. We're gonna get there.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to say about Orange Town?
Yeah, I think one standout thing to me is that and this is actually not my point. This is something that like I had heard before I even watched One Piece, was that the difference between the anime and the manga is summed up really well by the difference in this arc. Where if you look at the manga arc, Buddy is actually intimidating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whereas in the anime, he is not in the slightest. Which isn't like my point. That was something I saw in like one of the One Piece videos I watched back in the day when I assumed I'd never actually read it.
Well, by the time the anime started being serialized, we knew a couple more things, So I'm sure Oda was just like, make him goofy.
Make him goofy.
But yeah, I don't really have much to say about Orange Town.
No, I really like it, but definitely just like the blueprint arc.
Mm-hmm. So moving on to Syrup Village, Usopp's hometown. I really like this art.
Yeah, so incredibly good.
So you told me the first time you were brought to tears. When was the first time you were brought to tears in the series?
The first time I was brought to tears was
Was it Arlong? You said.
I don't actually think it might have been Arlong.
Okay. So for me, it was Syrup Village. I'm not afraid to admit it.
Yeah,
Specifically,
I definitely teared up at this part. I didn't like cry.
yeah, I teared up. I didn't like bawl my eyes out, but like
Yeah.
the ending part where Usopp's leaving the island and it shows the flashback of his mother is laying in bed dying, and it shows the reason why he does what he does every day was to give his mother hope. And to me, it always gets me to tear up every time I read that. I'm like, oh, it's so well done. Like it's
Yeah.
he does that every day. He pisses off everyone in the town, because he wants to give his mother hope that his father's coming back. It's really, I'm tearing up thinking about it right now. And then like him leaving and all the townspeople being like, oh, I didn't wake up on time because Usopp didn't come around this morning. Like it's like the town people really did care, even in a like, they knew what happened with him, and even though he's this annoying brat, they did care, kind of. So it's like that kind of it rubs me the right way, I guess.
Yeah. I think also a really good example of a plot relevant dad, which is depending on the dad, either my favorite or worst or least favorite thing about the series.
Yeah.
With specifically the fact that our main villain, because of the long claws that he wears on his hands, always
Yes.
pushes up his glasses
And
with his palms.
that wasn't even like to me, that wasn't even like a gag. That was just like intelligent writing because of the way like he pushed up with his palms, and I was like, that's weird. Like, is that very strange that he does that. And then they revealed later he does that because he uses these claws weapons, and that's like the tell that like Django didn't know if it was him because he looked a little different or stuff like something like that. Like he acted different, looked different, and then he saw him pushes up his glasses like that, and he was like, "Yep, it's him." Like nobody else does that.
And it's like the fact that that's like such an important like detail, but it's also really funny.
Yeah,
is like One Piece at its best, in my opinion. Oh wait, was Skypiea in my top 3? We're not there
you
yet.
did
But
not
I'm
mention it.
thinking,
Yeah, you did not mention it, but I can see it.
how does that?
But yeah, that's
Anyway.
That's Syrup Village. I also like Usopp's love interest, whatever her name is that I forget. The girl, because Usopp's essentially doing the same thing for her that he did for his mother, in a different way, but like he's still like trying to cheer her up and make her feel good. That's like I love Usopp as a character in this arc. It's like it's such a well introduction for this character that we'll come to love as we see.
I love Usopp as a character in general.
Yeah.
I love him, and I honestly continue to love him. I think that
we'll get
stays
to
great the whole time, even if he's used less.
We'll get to his big moments, and yeah, I think it's a crime that Usopp is used as little as he is in post time skip, and it's also a crime that, and we'll get to this later as well, that Usopp goes through character growth in almost all of his fights, and then immediately defaults back to original Usopp from before the fight the next arc. It really makes me angry, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
So moving on, Bharati, the Sanji introduction arc.
Yes.
So, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, it's really good in my opinion. I think that I think the villain in this one is probably one of the weakest for me, but it's in a way that is good.
Yeah, and it also grows the series a bit because the villain itself is like he's like this guy that relies on this stuff, and it's showing him like he was too weak for the Grand Line.
Yeah.
Like, so you gotta prepare more than this weirdo, like.
Yeah, it's such a good example of like maybe not like a poorly written character, but like a underdeveloped shell of a character because that's the type of person that will fail if that's what you like set out as.
Yeah, I mean, like it's Bharati for me was the first arc that kind of showed One Piece's originality, in that Bharati isn't an island with like trees and stuff. It's a floating restaurant shaped like a fish. And it's like this very like ingenious, like creative thing that's not like too over the top, but also it's just like, oh, this is just something in this world. Like nobody's like weirded out by this. It's just like, oh, it's a floating restaurant that's shaped like a fish. And in this world, it
And
makes sense that that would be there.
yeah, because like you gotta eat somewhere, and everywhere is water, so why not a floating restaurant?
Yeah. No, I mean, I like Sanji's introduction. Sets him up to be a really nice character, and it pays off in the early arcs as a nice character.
Yes.
And then we get to later.
Yeah, like Sanji eating food off of the floor,
Yeah. And Sanji giving
and oh,
food to
oh,
anyone
oh,
who asks, even if they can't pay for it, and like stuff like that.
yeah,
It's like
and
such a good setup
this
for a
one,
character.
yeah, now I remember now. This was the first place where I started to cry. It was in Sanji's backstory, that we did in this arc, where it's like the moment that you realize that that the old man had, because like they're both marooned on the island.
Yeah.
The old man gives Sanji this little bag of food, and he's like, "I'm bigger, so I need more food." And then Sanji goes over, and you realize that actually he had no food
Yeah.
and gave it all to Sanji.
Yeah.
That was the first time I started to cry.
Yeah. It's a very well done little precursor to Sanji, where we'll get another larger flashback.
Yes.
Sanji gets the good flashbacks, is what we're learning. But yeah, no, I like a lot of Barati. I enjoy the arc. That's really all I have to say.
Yeah.
Jin is a cool
It
character
definitely
that
did.
apparently will never come back. So he seems like a
Yeah,
cool,
which is
multifaceted character, but we'll never see him again. So oops.
yeah. Nope. If
Um,
they set foot on the Grand Line, everyone on that ship is probably gonna die.
moving on to the big one, Arlong Park.
Yes.
Cooley. Cooley.
So good. It's like if Buddy was the first blueprint, this was like the first like skyscraper.
Yeah, and the way it even starts out where like Nami's abandoning them and is going, and it's like she doesn't necessarily want to, but she's acting like she does because it's if she doesn't, she'll endanger her whole family and everybody else who lives on the island.
Mm-hmm.
And then that
And
moment
the
that you
straw hat
mentioned,
too. Like
yeah, that moment that you mentioned where Zoro's like, "Oh, really? You don't care?" and he just throws himself into the water.
which is like in like every single way such a stupid thing to do. Like even if like you do think that that is not the right course of action to take, but it also shows just how well he understands the people around him, and it's just like like this is the moment for me, like going back to like Hunter x Hunter for a moment, the moment that like it clicked for me for Hunter x Hunter, that like I realized like, oh, this is really good, this is a high quality, really well written thing, was during the arc where it was during the hunter exam when Gon was learning how to be a hunter, like how to like hunt,
Yeah,
and he learned that by watching the flies and the fish, while at the same time someone else was watching him.
yeah,
And there's like just the multi layers to it. Like that was the moment in Hunter x Hunter for me that was like, oh, this is going to be good. and Zolo throwing himself into the pool was that moment for in One Piece for me. That moment of like, oh,
Yeah,
this is really
where it's
good.
like the author is not just writing for the sake of writing a story. They're writing like they actually know how they want the characters to act and interact with the world. You know, like
Yeah, that moment of emotional intelligence from Zolo for me, which wasn't the first time it had happened, or like it wasn't like the first time that the characters had been like emotionally intelligent, but like that was the one that like sold it for me.
yeah. No, I mean, and we haven't even gotten to the meat and potatoes of our long.
Oh yeah, that's true. We're still on like the last piece.
So it's just this great story about Nami and like the sacrifices she's done throughout her whole life to try to save her family and the place that they live in. It's such a well done story.
Mhm.
I mean, like the different like fights that we have here as well. They're not overdone. Arlong has 3 backup dancers that are dealt with by Luffy's 3 backup dancers. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
and it's something that I want to highlight in the start because I think it's taken for granted later. Is that Usopp actually beats one of the fishmen, like one on
That's
one,
true.
actually defeats him, and it's
Yeah,
something that
through a combination of
yeah,
luck and ingenuity,
yeah, and then, like
but
intelligence
like
on
he
his own
earns
part
it.
and stuff. So it's like, yeah, he earns the win. Like it's not like he just like cheaped out a win. Like he legitimately earned a win against a fishman who are shown to be stronger than most characters at this point. So it's like,
Yeah.
and it's something that's taken for granted because Usopp is obviously not one of the strong members of the team. So it's
Mhm.
like it's a nice moment for him that put in perspective from later. I can appreciate a little bit more as well. But
Yeah. Oh man, you're so right about that.
yeah, and like the whole Luffy stretching his head out of the water while Sanji tries to swim and save him is really nice.
So funny.
Um,
So funny. So good.
and then of course the fight with Arlong. Um, is probably like the first big fight in the series that people point to and they're like,
Yeah.
look, this is really good.
Yeah. The Arlong fight is incredible.
Yeah, and it's something I've been thinking on like because recently I don't know if you've watched any Chainsaw Man.
I have not. It's just a bit too much for me.
Yeah, Chainsaw Man it can be a bit much for people, but it is very good and has really well written characters. Um, and one person that I saw was like all the fights are very visceral and quick, and like none of the fights last more than like a chapter. And the reason why is because the author because this world's bloody and like disgusting, and like they're getting the fights over with quick, but also like the author doesn't care about the fights; he cares about the characters, and that kind of like dinged a light off in
Yeah.
my head where it was like, oh, in a second. And I think that's kind of we see that a bit in Arlong here, where the Arlong fight with Luffy has a few like notches and a few ticks, but it's not drawn out. It's like
Yeah.
Luffy,
Like you really move from beat to beat.
yeah, it's like Luffy goes through all this stuff. It like tries to outsmart Arlong with one trick, another trick, and like a third trick, and that's like kind of it. It's
Mhm.
there's no like super power ups and like the power of my friends helped me get here and stuff like that, which we don't really see in the series, more or less. There are a couple of
Mhm.
moments where you can say like there's kind of some strange power ups out of the blue, you know, Gear 2, but like they're also
Yeah.
explained in the back.
But
Kind of thing.
yeah. Yeah.
It's like
But even then, like that was a surprise, but it wasn't like completely out of nowhere.
yeah, and it also wasn't like a bad surprise.
Yeah, which I think I don't know where we'll talk about it, but at some point I'm going to talk about the 2 to 30 power systems, which is a conversation that I really want to have about One Piece.
So, but I really like the Arlong fight, and it ends when Luffy gets up into the Nami's map room. Luffy gets up there and he looks around and he sees this map room where Nami's been working essentially for the past however many years. And Arlong's like, look at all the work we had her do, look what all that she's done, with her we'll be able to, fishmen will be able to conquer the world, and then Luffy goes, you've trapped her up here for like these years, like this is a horrible, awful place, and he just starts throwing shit out the windows.
And it's so good.
And like Nami sees this and she starts crying. She's like, she has an emotional moment because Luffy's essentially just throwing all this stuff that she hates out the windows and saying, you're done with this. You're mine now. You're my navigator, basically. It's such a well done.
So good.
Yeah, and then Luffy just topples the whole dang building. He just destroys the whole place. And frees the area from Arlong Park and
yeah. I don't know if I have anything else particular to say about it. Besides, as a side note, my favorite Straw Hat has changed at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Where it started out as kind of, like the obvious one, kind of like Zolo, but because, he was the one we got the most of at first. Then it ended up being kind of like split between Chopper and Usopp.
Mm-hmm.
But now it is.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for you. I'm so sorry for you.
It is. Oh yeah, I know. But now it is solidly Jinbei as my favorite.
I mean, yeah, Jinbei's great. I love Jinbei. There are some people that are anti-Jinbei. Can you believe it?
Really?
There are people that are like, he's too good and doesn't have enough gags to be on the crew. I'm like, bro, shut up. Punch you.
Listen,
like, because he's a serious character. Yeah, like, we have this straight man.
We've been waiting for a straight man for 20 years. And when we thought we got him, he disappeared again.
Just the moment when, and there's a bad thing about this moment that I want to highlight when we eventually do talk about it, but the moment in Wano where the feast is being had and he's the only one that shows up. And all the other ones are just partying, and he's like, yeah, don't worry about it. And the bad moment about that as well is like, Luffy's never not gonna like be like, welcome our new crew member, and the fact that we didn't get any moment afterwards from that either makes me a little angry, but we're not talking about that right now.
Yeah.
Moving on, short little 5 chapters. Loguetown. There's a lot packed into these chapters, though.
Loguetown? Oh, that's right.
So where we meet Smoker, we see Buggy and Alvida come back, and we meet Dragon.
Yes. I love Smoker.
Smoker's great.
Absolutely love him.
I wish he had a little bit more to do, and I also wish Tashigi had a bit more to do.
That's
because
true.
it feels like Oda wrote Tashigi with a purpose, and he just forgot to follow through on it. She looks exactly like Zoro's childhood friend that died, who he made a promise to right before she died, to be like the best swordsman, and who also, like, that childhood friend also thought she couldn't be a best swordsman because she was a woman. Yeah. And you set up this female swordsman who's accomplished, looks exactly like her, and you're not gonna follow through with anything.
And has like a direct ideological like disagreement with Zoro.
Yeah, and like, you're not gonna follow through with anything with that. I don't know. It rubs me the wrong way that she's not built on more. We see a bit of her later, but it's like not.
Yeah, like we did a bit of her in Alabasta. We did a bit of her in Punk Hazard. And that's pretty much it at that point.
And in Punk Hazard, it's almost like insulting. That's all I'm saying. Like, but
agreed.
But we'll move on. I mean, unless you got something else to say about Loguetown.
No, just besides the fact that I absolutely love Smoker.
Yeah, it's good to see Buggy back.
Also getting something that was set up in that arc that paid off in Wano, like. With the sword stuff.
Yeah. Which I wish we had more of. Bro, when we get to Wano, I'm gonna start taking names.
I know.
I got
I
things
am.
to say,
I
bro.
am. Yeah, I am ready for it.
All right. Well, if we're moving
But
on, you don't got really anything else to say. Like, the dragon made an appearance and just looked at Luffy, basically. We don't really know who he is yet. He's just a weirdo.
yeah.
So yeah, moving on to the Arabasta Saga is what it's called, but it doesn't really start with Arabasta. It starts with Reverse Mountain. Short little chapter, couple chapters, where the crew has to go over Reverse Mountain to get into the Grand Line. Isn't that it? Or no, is this not even Grand Line yet? This is Grand Line.
This is Grand Line.
Yeah, because this is the start of the Grand Line. They go to the Reverse Mountain, yeah. And so they go there and they meet Laboon, which I know is one of Cory's favorite. One of the pieces to Cory's favorite puzzle.
Yes. Something that's going to make me tear up much later.
We meet the princess, and yeah, and then nothing really much about Reverse Mountain unless you got something to say.
No, not really.
Doctor's a cool guy that we learn more about later. So.
Yeah. Which when we realized that was just a moment. Yeah. I was just like, huh.
Moving on to Whiskey Peak. I don't got much to say about this one.
Yeah, this is the you get to watch Zolo fight for an hour.
You get to watch Zoro just beat everyone's ass, and then be like, well, actually, we're the good guys.
Which is great. There's yeah, I think this is the first fake out death.
Yes.
Which doesn't get faked out for a while.
We have it's one of the like retainers of Alabasta or something.
Yeah, I think he's like I think he's like her nanny.
Well, I think he's one of like the hands of the king or whatever. Like, isn't he one of like the the higher ups in the kingdom?
Oh yeah, that's right. He's like one of like the 3 second in commands.
Yeah. And so he dies, but not actually. Look at that panel again. It's a beautiful double panel explosion page where it shows his ship massively exploding in something we've never seen, like even at lengths before in the series. And tell me that man lives through that. That's all I'm saying. Bullshit, but moving on. We got Little Garden.
That's not even insulting death.
Yeah, Little Garden, which is a nice little arc. It's the
it's a nice little arc.
2 giants are battling out on this island.
Yeah. Lots of setup in this arc that I really like.
That still has not paid off entirely.
Yeah, still has not paid off entirely, which is both like exciting and disappointing at the same time. Now that we know like that we're like the next arc is going to be like the last one.
It's not the next arc, the next saga. So there's a couple arcs left. It's not just one arc. So yeah, it's this saga that has just started as the final saga. So it's a couple arcs left.
Okay, but yeah, so it's like a little exciting and a little potentially disappointing. But it's not like the Land of Elbaf hasn't come up like other times, too.
Yeah, and that's where like Usopp wants to go for his thing, so I'm expecting him to have a big part in the arc, just like Zoro had a huge part in Wano, right? So I just can't help myself.
No, I don't.
So Little Garden, it's the 2 giants fighting each other.
I also have a bone to pick, not with Wano, but with the people who talk about Wano.
Sure. I mean, we'll get there. I mean, we have plenty of stuff to say before Wano as well. So.
Like, there's 2. Why do you all only talk about the 1? We'll get to that, though.
So, yeah, Little Garden I enjoy. We get Mr. 3's introduction. He's a nice little guy. He's obviously trying to kill our main characters here.
Yeah. I really like what's her name? Was it
Miss All Sunday?
Yeah, Miss All Sunday. That was the little girl with the color powers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love her. She's so adorable.
Yeah, and I like the gags in Little Garden where Zoro's willing to cut off his leg. And then he's like, "Oh, I took too long to cut off my leg," so he puts his sword in the air. And they're like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Well, I got to be in a good pose for my death statue."
So good. So stupid, but so good.
One thing we forgot to mention with
Little
Zoro
guarded.
during Barate is that he got the fight with Mihawks,
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot
where
Mihawk.
Mihawks beat him with a little dagger and said, you know, fight me when you're a little stronger. And he said, I'll never lose again until I fight you.
Uh huh.
That's just a little moment for Zoro. You know, no big deal. It's just his whole
Yeah.
character arc.
Yeah. Just a little moment with my wife's favorite One Piece character.
So moving on.
Yeah.
Unless you got something else to say, Little Garden.
Not for anything. No, I don't.
One other funny gag from this is Sanji and Zoro. We kind of see that this isn't the first of their rivalry, but it's like them being like, okay, who's gonna catch the bigger fish?
Oh yeah. Pre-time skip, Solo and Sanji are some of my favorite interactions.
Yeah.
Like the amount of times Sanji just like disrespects Zolo and just like all the male members of the Straw Hats in general. I love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic.
No, I mean Sanji's a
Makes
well-written
me
character.
smile every time it happens.
Sanji's a well-written character
Where
until a
he's
certain point.
just like, yeah. Every time he's just like, here is your artfully prepared meal, my ladies. And you can literally eat dog. Every time it happens, it makes me smile. I can't help it.
But the important part of Sanji's character is that he does feed them, and he also does actually care about his crew besides just the woman. So, but
yes,
you wouldn't know it if you looked at Sanji's as well. So anyway, moving on. Drum Island, where we meet Chopper.
this one is so good.
Very good arc.
Absolutely.
Hero Look is probably one of my favorite side characters in the series. Just a quack doctor who is can't do anything right, but he's trying. He's trying at all moments.
So and he cares so much about people. And Chopper is such a good boy.
Chopper's such a good character, and
I'm
sorry.
I am right. I mean, at least unlike Usopp, Chopper has big, important, good moments in one. They're just not fights.
He's like one kind of, and could have another
okay, yeah.
like four if they decided to write him into them, but they didn't.
Yeah, that's true. But I love Chopper. He's such a good boy. I think one thing in particular that we don't really get enough of from Chopper, in my opinion, which Chopper is kind of he's so cool, especially the way he fights, but they just don't give him any good fights.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Well, pre-time skip, they give him plenty. Almost every arc he has a good fight.
So the big thing with Chopper that I really enjoy about this one is that it really leans into the fact that what is so cool about Chopper's ability is that it's actually a lot of different powers in one. He just has to switch between them.
Yeah. And that's so cool. And it's such a cool power. I'd love to see how it's used in the So anyway.
What's that? He has a monster form? Okay. What's that? He has a monster form that loses all the time? Okay.
Here's one thing I want to point out about Chopper. And my opinions. Because I, like assholes. I want to spread mine. I hate mascot characters a lot. Every series that has a mascot character is either if they weren't originally a mascot character and they became one, or if they are just a mascot character, I always am just angry at the mascot character for existing. Because they're usually just written really stupidly and without any actual intent other than, look, they look cute and they say funny things.
Yeah.
The good thing about that is Oda also agrees with this. Oda doesn't like mascot characters. So he wouldn't do anything to
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, something happened where Oda heard the voice actress for Chopper, and he really liked her voice, and he really liked how she played Chopper. And he decided to turn Chopper into a mascot character. Oda, why? Why do you gotta do this, man? The thing that makes me like just so confused about this is he himself said he doesn't like mascot characters and then turned Chopper into one.
Yeah.
It's like
Although at that point, I think Usopp's as much a mascot character as Chopper is, though, because I feel like in terms of like amount of disrespect, like post time skip era, I think it's about the same for the two of them.
the difference is Chopper only has Kung Fu Point anymore, and he doesn't have any other forms, and he just walks around as a giant tin can. And
Yeah.
says funny things. But I digress. I know the first time I felt like Chopper was completely and utterly disrespected. So they reintroduced all the Straw Hats. We're going post time skip now because you've triggered me.
Yeah.
That we go post time skip and we see the reintroduction of the Straw Hats. The first thing we see is Usopp, and he looks fucking built. He looks like he trained a bit, and he looks good, and he meets Nami in the bar, and she looks good as well. And they're both like, "Hey, how's it going, stranger?" You know, like there's a nice interaction between these two characters we haven't seen in a while. And it's like, oh, they look really good. Cut to Chopper. He's being stupid, Chopper. It's like it's funny though, but it's like he's being dumb and he doesn't recognize. Eventually, he gets back to the actual Straw Hats, but he doesn't have his hat. He has a different hat on. To me, this was very head scratching because the whole backstory was he had that hat because it reminded him of her look, and it was like really important to him. And then they revealed that he's hiding the hat underneath his new hat. Okay, listen. I get it. You want to give new designs to the Straw Hats. You want to give new designs to the Straw Hats. I get it. There's no way in a million years, I believe, Chopper would put anything over that hat. In a million years. He still has it, yeah, sure, but there's no way I would believe that he would cover up that hat. No chance. So when I saw that, I was like, this is just wrong. Like that, there's something wrong here with like the way they wrote Chopper here. Like that doesn't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but it was because they wanted to have a new design for their mascot character that he is now. He's not a character anymore. He's a mascot.
Yeah.
And it really makes me sad. Because he has such a cool fucking power, as we get to see in the next arc, Alabasta, where he's literally changing forms. He's going Brainpoint to figure out how to beat the enemies, and then changing to his more stronger forms after like using that point. It's such a cool power that we just don't get to see because he's now a mascot.
Yeah. It's so upsetting. Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. And I honestly never even thought about the fact that he got turned into a mascot character.
Yeah.
Because all I can think of is the fact that, like, as a joke, he's, like, considered a mascot of the Straw Hats and, like, only has a tiny bounty because of it.
No, I mean, it was a joke. It was a good joke, but he's also just actually a mascot character now. Like,
It's not a joke.
He's not,
It's not a joke, but it's not a joke.
like, he's the doctor of the ship. Sure, between arcs he'll heal everyone, and they won't show how it happens. But like, it's like the respect for Chopper pre-time skip versus post-time skip is very telling.
Yeah.
But anyway, vented enough.
Yeah.
Any thoughts about Drum Island? Any more thoughts?
Absolutely love it.
Great arc. Lovely arc. So anyway, I don't know how much time you have tonight. I don't know how far we're gonna get into this.
Until about 9:30 is when Alexa gets off.
We'll go a little speedy. Alabasta.
Yeah, Alabasta.
Next big arc.
Incredibly good.
Very good.
In my opinion. I really, really like what's his name? Crocodile as a villain.
Crocodile's great. glad that he
Yeah,
comes back.
he is.
He realizes that he has ambitions unfulfilled and decides to try to fulfill them in the future. I'm glad that he returns.
Yeah, he is like I am terrified to watch One Piece and hear what they did with his voice. I've never heard it, but like he is such a good character that if his voice isn't good, I'd be upset.
Yeah, Crocodile's great. Luffy rubbing his two
Yeah,
brain
I
cells
love
together to figure out how to beat Crocodile is great,
Yes.
and still losing to him multiple times.
Yeah.
Um, and just like the whole like mystery around the arc about like who's pulling the strings, like there's a civil war happening, like what's happening, like the conspiracy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like very well done.
Yeah. And it's like it's not one of those like things that I absolutely love from its like like one of those like Death Note almost moments of like, oh, so you have a plan with like layers on layers on layers on layers on layers on layers, and you just get to watch it unfold. And it's like the villain's plan, of course, but like still layers on layers on layers.
Yeah,
And it's like an actually like really good, really thought out plan.
yeah,
So all of these like if they did not properly set up how intelligent and dedicated Crocodile was, it would be incredibly frustrating to see all of those like it would feel like a bunch of like rear end pulls.
yeah.
But Oda does a really good job of setting up the intelligence and just like how much work is
And
gone
how
into
he
this.
would predict literally everything that would happen. Like they're going to try to stop the rebellion. Here's how we stop them from doing that. You know, they're
Uh-huh.
they're gonna try to make peace while they're fighting. We're just going to nuke the whole courtyard. Like it's just the character is very intelligent,
Yeah,
and
it's
that's what
so
makes the
good,
art interesting.
and the sacrifice. Well, the moment where the bird dies
Sacrifice. It's
flies
just
away with
it's
the
such a
bomb.
strange dichotomy in this arc. We have Luffy going off to the princess, whatever her name is. She's a temporary straw hat, so I should remember her name.
Vivi.
Vivi. And he's
Wasn't it
go
Vivi?
yeah, and she's like crying and like I don't want people to die, and Luffy like looks at her straight and says, "People die. That's something that's going to happen. People are going to die. Like that's just the fact of the matter, and you have to do your best to like try and stop it as much as you can. But inevitably, people are going to die because that's just what happens. And then to have none of the important characters die." And have two of them be assholes that are just like, oh, they actually exploded, but actually, they're safe this whole time. It's a very strange, like, whiplash.
Yeah, and it's so frustrating.
I think we get some. I think the arc's very good. Besides that,
Yeah, yeah. Besides the fact that the bird guy, who, like, incredibly touching moment, incredibly like hurtful moment, and then it's just like completely undone a couple chapters later.
yeah, and that's because Oda's mentality, which I mentioned before, is if the character has served their purpose in the story, just bring them back. Who cares? Because at the end of the day, you're not going to do anything else with them, so just bring them back. Who cares? Who gives a shit? Like, who cares if they're dead or alive? It doesn't matter. Well, it does matter, Oda, but obviously it's a different mentality. So, but it's there's other good moments. I really like the fights in this arc. Choppers and Usopp's is probably my favorite, where they're just like fighting the mole woman and the baseball bat dog, where Chopper actually has to figure out a plan and like they have to enact it.
Yeah, it's incredibly good.
The whole thing surrounding they don't know all of the Straw Hats, and that leads to Sanji's really nice moment where he surprises them because they think they've won, and then they just get a call from Mr. Prince who's like, "Oh, actually, I'm gonna beat your ass." I was like, "Wait, what?" And it's like completely shocking them and surprising them. There's somebody else on the outside, so it's like a very nice moment from Sanji that we get to see once more. You get to see him have a similar moment once more, and Water 7 and his lobby. But other than that, we don't see that much
Yeah.
much of that from him anymore, unfortunately, which is a little sad.
Yeah. Which also makes sense because, as we move forward, Sanji becomes less of a like mystery figure from the outside, as he obviously does more.
Yeah, he becomes one of like the main force. But I don't know. Do you have any other thoughts about Alabasta? I know we're kind of just like generic thoughts.
Yeah, my first like uncomfortably pervy moment happens here,
Mm.
where they're all gawking at the girls in the bath, including
Yes,
the
yes,
dad
that's
gawking at his father
yes,
or
that's
daughter.
that's a very strange moment.
Yeah,
It's one of those moments where you just try to forget it happens.
yeah,
You're just like, not gonna think about this one.
yeah. So
It's a shame because
that's a negative thought.
Cobra is such a great character,
Yeah.
and we'll
And
get
there are
we'll get
still
to
mysteries about him to this day that we don't know
we'll
about.
get more to Cobra later. um, but finally moving on, I guess from Alabasta. I mean, thoughts mainly good arc, very good arc.
Yeah, yeah, very good.
Moving on, the next saga is Sky Island, and it has 2 arcs in it. The first one being Jaya.
Yeah, which is really good.
I love Jaya. Jaya's great.
Yeah, our introduction to who is probably like the BBEG,
Blackbeard.
like probably like the main bad guy.
I love
Incredibly good
I
introduction.
love this introduction. It's so great. Everything about it I love. The fact that it's just a random guy in a tavern that they're talking with and he's just disagreeing with everything Luffy says, and then they walk out and he's just like encouraging Luffy to follow his dreams. And then like
Yeah,
but our characters aren't responding like agreeingly with him. They're acting like put it off, and it's like, what's happening here? Like, this is very strange. It's like I love the introduction to Blackbeard. It's so well done, in my opinion.
very much agree. It's yeah, I hate Blackbeard as a person, but I love Blackbeard as a character.
Yeah, no, Blackbeard is very well written. Speaking of another character that's like, Blackbeard doesn't appear intelligent when he's written in the story, but he is.
Yeah,
Like, he very much is intelligent. The things that he does would not be done by a stupider man.
yes,
The only other thing that I have to say about Jaya is Bellamy. I love this character, but not in
yeah,
this arc.
yes. It's
Bellamy's a little turd in this
that
arc, but
was
we see more of him
yeah.
later.
It was a huge surprise when he came back as engaging as he did.
I love him.
Also,
He's
this
one of my
is
favorite parts of Dressrosa.
yeah, and this is also where Dressrosa starts to be built up,
Yeah.
which is very cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the whole like story of what was his name? Nolan the Liar. Oh, that entire story was so like
Well, it's
sad to me.
only
Which like it starts out
revealed.
here.
Yeah, it's only revealed here. It's expanded on as we get into Skypiea,
Yeah.
which is the next part. And boy, Skypiea. Wee. Ooh. Oh god.
Really, really good. It might be one of my favorites.
I liked Skypiea a lot my first time read through, and then after it was done, I was like, wait, but it didn't affect the world any. You know? Like what? Huh? Like my mind was like, what did I just read that for? Especially because it's and this is what a lot of people have issues with Skypiea is the fact that it doesn't affect the world at large. It's a wholly separated arc.
I see that, yeah.
And it doesn't really affect much besides like Luffy and crew finding a hint from Roger. And that's really it.
Yeah.
And like it doesn't really affect much, and like Luffy doesn't learn anything in his fight because he's not really fighting. He's just like he just is a natural enemy to NL basically. Like a natural foil to NL, so he just beats him. Like
Yeah. Well, no, because he doesn't beat him though. He loses
he
for the
he,
most
he
part.
loses quote unquote by NL strapping a golden ball around his fist. It's like yeah.
It's
I can
well,
see
I
why people
really
think negatively of the arc in that way.
yeah
And on reread, I was like trying to like I was like, well, I don't want to read this long arc because it's right before Water 7 and NSI. I'm like, I don't want to read this.
yeah
But then I'm like, I'll sit down and read it, and it's still a good arc. Like even if it's
yeah
separated from the rest of the story.
yeah. Like I think that for me, I think that it is it's so engaging to me because of just how ridiculous Eneru is as a villain and as a character.
Mhm.
And it's just so good in my opinion. Like I think for me, like it's one of the highlights of like the branching power systems of One Piece, which like I think like when we did the time skip is when I want to talk about it mostly, but like the way that these devil fruits interact, I think this is the first one to me where it was like, oh, there's actually like a lot going on here, in terms of how these devil fruits interact
Yeah.
and just
And
what level they can be taken to.
the best part is it makes a lot of sense because NL's electricity and Luffy's made out of rubber because electricity can affect rubber, and there's no way that could change in the future of the story that would make it make no sense at all. So anyway,
Yeah, yeah. No future events that would rub that the wrong way.
so no,
But
anyway,
yeah, I absolutely love Eneru as like a villain and a character. Every
I
now
like
and
him.
then, I think about the fact that he had an arc in the title cards. Well,
He
not
did.
really an arc for him, but like he had a thing,
He
and it
did.
reminds me that oh wait, he could show up
He
again
could.
at any moment,
He could show up.
and I'm not sure if I want or not. I probably do.
He
I
still
think I
would
do.
be very powerful compared to a lot of devil fruit users. The issue is since hockey's been introduced, he would be made obsolete.
Yeah.
So even though they had a primitive form of I don't know if you caught that, but they're like,
Oh yeah,
when
yeah,
they're
yeah.
introducing hockey in like the
They
future site, they're like,
yeah
oh,
they
Skypiea has
had
that.
the color of observation hockey as like a natural feature of their society, I guess.
Also known as a retcon. But moving on. I like Skypiea for what it is. Not my favorite of the long arcs, but I like the characters in it, and it's a fun little arc separated from the rest of the story. So, yeah.
Yeah, I personally really like it.
There's like this conspiracy theory because Skypiea isn't connected to the rest of the story, so of course nerds online have to be like, but it is connected. Here's the conspiracy theory that everything in Skypiea is actually like a foreshadowing of events in the future.
Oh,
Stupid.
I mean, you are right. Everything that happens in Skypiea happens again every single arc.
True. Well, moving on to the next arc. It's finally here. We're finally getting to water set. It's finally Lingrong Island, Linglong, whatever it's called.
Wait, what?
Long Ring Longland.
Oh, that's right. Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's stupid. It's a filler arc written in the
So
manga.
funny. Which I really liked it.
It's okay.
Obviously, not the best arc
Yeah,
by any stretch of the
okay.
imagination.
And a lot of
It's
people, there's this conspiracy theory online that the Davy back fight was introduced not because this is just a filler arc written, but because the Davy back fight's going to be used in the fight versus Shanks when the Straw Hats finally fight Shanks, because Luffy said he wants to beat all of the emperors. So obviously he's got to fight Shanks, but he's probably not going to fight him for real. So they're going to use the Davy back fight. That's the conspiracy theory that this arc wasn't useless.
Oh, the Davy back, the Davy back.
And I hope they don't do that. So
like I would be entirely opposed to them doing that, but I don't think that's why this arc was introduced personally.
Yeah, I think this arc was just Oda trying to have a little fun with a little arc that he had an idea in between Skypiea and the behemoth that would be Water 7 and his lobby.
Yeah. And I think that Water 7.
Just get rid of it. Well, okay. Water 7. Yeah, Water 7.
Where do I even start?
Let me just say this is the first arc where I was like, Oda has given this world, Oda has created this world and made it beautiful. Like the Nami, Usopp, and Luffy getting on the little horses and riding through Water 7, and it's just like these landscape shots of the city. It's like beautiful, like it's amazing. Like just those first shots, it's like wow. And then like that's just the beginning of this amazing arc. Like
yeah, that's
because I just remember seeing this, reading the thing and seeing those panels and being like whisked away to a fantastical world in my mind because it was like that well done. It was like wow, it's really nice.
And it's I guess that was one of like yeah, I agree with you there. And that's one of the first times that they really like, or he really went out of his way to be like, this is a beautiful place.
Yeah, and like in a completely ingenious, like original kind of design. Like it has a lot of like Venice, like real world influence, but it's also like
out in the water.
Like like a water elevator, and like like the whole water's like the whole island's like flooded. It's like the pieces that build Water 7 as a city are really well done, and it like makes it like believable in this world and also like interesting to just look at and read about. This is very well done. And so that's the beginning of Water. So we're talking about like the first 2 panels.
Other things to note about Water 7 is that it's really interesting to read from the perspective of someone who like knows a lot of One Piece from like the cultural consciousness, but like has never actually read it. Because like I know that Frankie is a character who is like a popular, cool character who joins the Straw Hats, but I don't know anything about how that happens.
See, I didn't know that. I didn't even know Frankie was going to join the Straw Hats. So this whole arc, when I was reading it, because they were looking for a carpenter, they come in town looking for a carpenter. And there are a bunch of characters introduced as carpenters. So the whole time I'm reading it, I didn't know Frankie was going to be the one. So I'm like, who the fuck's joining their team?
Yeah.
So for me, that was another interesting aspect of this arc, is like, which one of these characters is going to be joining up with them,
Yeah, because you have the guy with all the ropes.
That was my bet for that's Paulie. That was my bet for most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. There was Frankie as well, who you find at build ships. There was also but it was like still early on, but there were
Rob and Kaku, who later we get some revelations about.
Yeah. Kaku, that's the one with the nose, right?
Yes.
Kaku is one of my favorite One Piece characters overall. I love him. He is beautiful. I never want to see pictures of him in color again. But he is beautiful, and I love him.
Yeah, no, I like all the cast introduced at the beginning of Water 7 is really nice. It's like great. And then we get introduced to Frankie, in one of the meanest ways possible. The Frankie crew mugs Usopp, steals a bunch of money from him, and then Frankie goes off and immediately goes on a shopping trip with that money out of the
And
island.
spends it all at once.
Spends it all at once. And it's one of the meanest things. Like, I dislike Frankie greatly at this point, which is saying something considering he is my favorite Straw Hat. But I did not like him as a character. I was like, this piece of shit. Especially because it's Usopp who they beat up. Usopp goes through an arc here that starts here, where he gets beat up and the money stolen from him, and he's like, I'm useless, you know? Like, I'm with these powerhouses on the ship that are incredibly strong. I've seen them take down, you know, a lightning god, a man made of sand, a giant fish man. What am I to compare to them, you know?
And this arc of Usopp's is contrasted with the fact that what else he brought to the table, which wasn't really him, and I don't think he necessarily feels like it was him that brought this to the table, but like the connection to his home island, the Mary, is falling apart, and he can't repair her anymore, and we keep on didn't tell that she's on her last legs, and so like the parallels to how Usopp feels about himself and Mary, but also the fact that, you know, that's a connection to his hometown.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's so good.
It's such like everything. We could sit here for hours just talking about Water 7 and Enies Lobby, like these double core arc. It's you know how when we're talking about Hunter x Hunter sometimes we're talking about how the way that they set up like the arcs, how there's just multiple things happening at once that set up a situation where your mind is like it can't concentrate on one good moment because there are 7 others that are like racing through your mind.
Yeah, there's so much happening.
And that's almost every arc with Hunter x Hunter is like there's so much happening that's like you have to like think about it. That is Water 7 and Enies Lobby in One Piece. Not every arc has that same kind of feel, but Water 7 and Enies Lobby do because everything is happening. Yeah. Everything is happening at once.
Like, Ono's trying.
Like Usopp is feeling like a failure. Mary's dying, quite literally. Robin's disappeared. What's happening with that? Like they need to find a carpenter because their ship's falling apart and they need to get a new ship. So it's like all this stuff is happening in Water 7 at the same time. And eventually we see even the Straw Hats get pinned for an attempted assassination. So it's like all this stuff is happening at the same time.
And we get to see Luffy dealing with the not fun part of being a leader, I think, for the first time.
And it's something...
like, because like at this point, Luffy hasn't had to make any hard decisions, really. Like, he's had hard challenges, but he hasn't really had any hard decisions.
And it's like, that's something I wanted to touch on a little bit before we went fully into that decision, is Usopp getting mugged, you know, being useless, feeling useless, and him going to confront the Frankie family himself. Because he's like, I need to get back what I've lost. I need to prove I'm not useless and that I can help out my team. And he just gets absolutely destroyed. Essentially, like, left for dead in front of their house. And and that's when the rest of the crew shows up. And this is probably one of my favorite moments in this arc, is just little to no words are said. Just our four strong crew members who will stay strong and not be turned into mascot characters walk into the Frankie family's hideout and just destroy it and beat all of them within an inch of their life.
Yeah.
And so well done and cathartic to the moment.
So satisfying. Makes sense.
Yeah. And it dominoes as an effect to affect Frankie, who comes back and he sees this whole place destroyed, all of his minions reeling in pain, and he's like, "What the fuck?" And that then
What
dominoes
happened
into
here? I was gone for 10 minutes.
that then dominoes into, you know, the fact that Robin's gone missing, and there's an attempted assassination attempt on the leader of the city. What's happening there? And then Frankie's trying to pick a fight with the Straw Hats, and the Straw Hats are being pinned for this assassination, so Frankie's trying to pick a fight with them, while the Carpenters, who are also strong, they've been shown to be strong at this point, are also trying to pick a fight with them, so it's like this battle that's happening multiple ways. It's like,
just layers on layers on layers.
and like it's very well done, and at the same time, a natural occurrence is happening, the Aqua Laguna, I think, where it's
Yeah.
filling the town with water, and everybody has to get to higher ground. So this natural disaster's happening at the same time as all this stuff's happening. So it's like,
Yeah. And there's like a natural a disconnect between the beauty, or not disconnect, but like counterpoint to all the beauty we've seen in Water 7 leading up to this, with the fact that this place is slowly descending into nothing.
yeah, the town is slowly dying. Like the lower parts of the town, you can see before the wave comes in because it's sucking out all the water. You can see the lower parts of the town that have been permanently put underwater. The town is slowly dying, so it's like, what's happening with that? It's a lot of stuff. Just like thinking about it and putting it into words is like, even like, did I forget something?
Anytime I start talking about it, it bothers me. Not to mention just how good the villains are in this arc.
Mm-hmm. We'll get to fucking. Well, some of the villains are good. I don't like the main one, is all I'll say. Mr. Loblucci.
Oh, you don't like him?
Lobert Lucci.
Yeah, I can see that.
Which is bad news for me.
Yep. Good news for me though, because his the second one, I think he's the strongest one. Second one is one of my favorites. I love him so much.
But yeah, so then there's like this conspiracy revealed that people are trying to assassinate Iceberg, who is the town leader, and one of them is Robin for some reason, who just left the crew. Mm-hmm. And it's like, what is happening? And these people are a lot stronger than Luffy. Like, Luffy can't beat them.
Yeah.
So it's like what?
Luffy can't even fight them, is what it feels like in that first encounter.
Luffy can't even like scratch them. Like, they're just that much stronger. And it's like, what is happening? You know. And then our heroes are defeated. They're separated. Robin has gone off because she's basically going to jail. She's basically being sent to jail because this was like her last thing that the government had her do. And the government is sending her to jail, and luckily we get that one other good moment from Sanji where he's following her. He recognizes the shitstorm that is happening in the city, and he stays low and he follows them essentially, and also ends up following some other of his crew members. Usopp ends up being there as well.
Yeah.
Due to situations where Usopp and Frankie kind of talk and make peace with each other in a weird scene. Like, they aren't mad at each other. Usopp's mad because of a situation that we haven't even talked about.
Yeah.
Which is what you were building on earlier, and I rudely interrupted you, so take it away. I don't know. Feel free.
Yeah. So, so like the sort of, Mary is on its last legs, and the like characterization of Mary is again one of my favorite things about this arc, because that was the moment that had me full on in tears.
Yeah.
Like, I was crying on the couch next to my wife.
People can't not cry at that moment. It's impossible.
Yeah. This is the death that will stick.
Yeah, because it's not even.
But yeah, and it's like, I just love it so much because there's build up, there's payoff, and it's it's a very like there are a lot of like segments that are impacted by this, like by the ship dying, because it is a like what's the word I'm looking for? Because like on the one hand, it is a hard decision for Luffy to make, which he hasn't really had to do yet. He's had tough challenges, but he hasn't had to make hard decisions. And it's also a humanizing moment for some of our villains, because Frankie, who is a villain like at this point kind of, is someone who can start to make Usopp like see the truth of the matter, but can't. And it's also a moment for Kaku, who's like, listen, I know I'm not an actual shipwright or ship carpenter,
But
but
they've
like,
been disguising
if
themselves
you
for long
sail
enough
out,
that they know.
yeah, but it's like, but like, there's like this moment of it's like, we give ourselves so completely over to these roles that like I am still a ship's carpenter through and through to some extent, and and even if we're on opposite sides of conflict right now, I'm not going to let you kill yourself on this boat and disrespect it. And so he destroys the boat. And it's like a humanizing moment for like multiple characters at once, and it's also like a tragic moment and an angry moment, and it's just like a lot of emotional complexity to be layered into like one scene, or
Right.
well, one series of scenes
And it's not
in
even
Frankie's like super doc.
the only emotional moment that's happening in the scene either.
Oh yeah,
As
yeah,
it's also revealed that Frankie is secretly was you know on an apprenticeship with the town mayor at the time, who we recently found out the assassination was because they were trying to get secret documents from the town mayor that he doesn't have, so he must have them. Like,
yeah. I love Frankie so much.
yeah, no, I mean Frankie. There's a lot of little things I like about Frankie. Um, like the Frankie's like propensity to like cry, very similar to mine, where I tear up when I saw like Frankie's backstory. I teared up, and then like afterwards when we find out
Hmm.
Frankie is the kind of guy who just cries at everything, I'm like, that's
Yeah.
I'm very similar to that. I tear up at a lot of stuff that's like even like a little
Hmm.
soft hearted. I'm like, oh, so I relate to the character in that sense, and I just like a lot of other things about Frankie. Just like the moment where Frankie, we haven't even gotten to this, but the moment where Frankie's up on the ledge with Robin,
Uh-huh.
and like Robin's just like struggling with this fact that she doesn't know if she wants to be alive or not, which we'll get into. um,
Yeah.
and Frankie's just like there, and he's just like encouraging her, and then finally they're like, Frankie, you're here, and we need this, like, the whole time they need this thing from him, and Frankie's like, okay, let me distract you for a second, and he pulls out the blueprint, and he's like, yeah, I stored it inside me, and by the way, I'm going to destroy it now, and he just burns it up, and it's like,
Lights it up.
that's so good. But that's skipping ahead a little bit. So I've got to gush about my favorite character. I like Frankie a lot,
As you should.
and I'm excited to hope that Frankie gets something in his upcoming arc. So
Yeah.
it's not like Frankie hasn't had fights, but he hasn't really had much in terms of the character himself. A bit.
Yeah.
Like Dressrosa, I would say, was the only thing that's really gotten post time skip, and it was a good moment.
Yeah, that's true. The him and the baby man.
Senior Pink,
Yes.
who
So
Oda has the power to write a character who looks like a fucking baby freak and compelling.
yes.
But anyway, finishing up with Water 7. So they move on to Ennis
Yeah.
Lobby. Usopp is mad because of the fight that he had with Luffy that we didn't really talk about.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Frickin' Usopp versus Luffy is a fight.
So Luffy wants to get rid of the ship. He's decided. He's making his decision as captain. Usopp says, "I'm not leaving this damn ship, no matter what you say." And so they have a fight. over who's going to own the ship, like who has the rights to say like who can destroy the ship or keep it or whatever, whoever wins this fight. And so Usopp like genuinely wants to fight him. And everyone's like, Usopp, what are you doing, you stupid idiot? Like you're gonna lose. Usopp's like, no, I'm going to fight him because I know him better than everyone else, and I'm gonna fight him, and I'm gonna show that I can fight him.
And we're calling it here.
Okay. I thought I heard something.
Yeah. No, he's not. I think he's over at Barb's.
Yeah, I'm over at Barb's.
Oh, they've... Okay, well, they've got food over there. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, in which case, Oh, it wasn't very... Oh, yeah, Amy called me and was like, do you want to come over and get some food? I'm like, no, thank you, already ate. Yeah. Anyway, Paul, love you. We will definitely talk about One Piece more in the future.
Yeah. And we have a good spot to pick it back up, so...
Yeah, I was going to go ahead since you were calling now. Oh, okay, cool. In which case, we're not ending the stream.
Oh!
Unbiased.
The wife gave permission.
I love you, my darling. Alright, love you, bye. Alright, so stream is not over.
Permission from the better half, let's go. Wifey said I could stay up an extra 30 minutes.
I got permission from the wife.
So,
yeah, so we were on...
Usopp says he can beat Luffy in a fight because he knows him better than anyone else.
Well, that was a fucking lie.
Well,
or was it?
What he shows is that he actually can do pretty good against Luffy. It's not like a joke either, or like, I mean, it kind of is, but like it's not like a. It's not like he says. It's not like he says I can beat him and then they exchange punches and Usopp like beats him in an exchange of blows because he can predict his punches or something like a predictable shonen would do. It's Usopp using his tools to his advantage in a way that he knows that will piss off and possibly beat Luffy, and it works to an extent.
Yeah, it's like Usopp never had like a ghost of a chance, but Usopp wasn't like worthless.
Yeah, and Usopp made it look like almost a fair fight because of how well he did. But then Luffy eventually delivers the punch, and it's like, and he just says, "You can have the ship. I don't want it because I'm gonna destroy it anyway." And he leaves, and Usopp says, "Okay, I'm no longer part of the crew. See you later." Later. And Usopp leaves the crew. So there's that. That's a confrontation. So Usopp's angry about that and all that. Going back to that time that we were talking about where they're confronting him and Frankie, and they destroy the ship.
Yeah.
And Usopp's just like incredibly angry, but CPO doesn't want to kill him for reasons I don't remember. Who knows?
I think it was that at this point, because he wasn't a part of the Straw Hats, and CP0 is... Or, is it CPO or CP0?
CP0, but CPO is...
Yeah.
Just nomenclature.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's because he wasn't part of the Straw Hats at that point, so he technically wasn't on Kpo's like permission to kill list.
Actually, they're CP7 actually in this arc. That's right.
Oh, that's right. They're CP7.
CPO. CPO is the super secret.
Yeah.
The even more secret.
CPO is the one that they're on later. In the modern arc.
Man, I have a lot of things to say.
Yeah, a lot of things to say.
But Yeah, so it's revealed that some of the carpenters were actually government agents in disguise, and it was actually a whole conspiracy. They want the blueprint for the secret weapon that the government wants, and since the guy who they tried to assassinate, Iceberg, doesn't actually seem to have it, the only other connection they have to him is Cuddy Flam, which was the guy who took the apprenticeship with him, which turns out to be Frankie. So they go confront him, and they find Usopp there. Destroy the ship, like you mentioned. And they capture Usopp and Frankie and bring them along on the train that Robin's also on, which just happens to have Sanji following. That's where Water 7 ends.
Yep. And then we've got the sea train into Ennis Lobby, which I kind of consider it all one arc.
I mean, yeah, it's
Water 7, but
it's like the dual arc, but it goes together with itself very
wait,
well.
Are you kidding me?
You get something.
Is this the only shiny I can find? Is this it for me?
Hey, you wanna trade?
Yeah.
I'll give you a Litleo.
Is this game like hard coded to always have your second shiny be the same as your first?
It wasn't a second, but
Noah in the chat with the but is it a big weasel?
yeah. And this lobby is basically it's the same arc but continued more or less. Even though it's considered a separate arc because they changed locations. You're not in Water 7 anymore. You're not in Kansas anymore. In Ennis Lobby, which is the government-controlled island that leads one of the entrances to Impel Down, the prison that nobody's ever escaped from. We'll never hear anything from that again. It's like the courtroom that they send people through.
Location.
Yeah, it's the courtroom that they send people through before they go to jail, and has a bunch of faux trials, which is actually revealed in a little moment later, which I really like. That the trials aren't exactly faux. They just make the jury made out of all criminals who want to see everyone else also go down like them. So they always make everyone guilty that comes through, which is a really nice moment that I like.
It's really funny because it's kind of like it's kind of like the opposite response to like what tends to happen in real life.
Yeah.
Whereas like in real life, the problem is that in these juries tend to be like the dominant like people just by like virtue of like what the numbers are. Tends to have more people that are like not criminals. And so they tend to look a little bit harder on criminals. But this jury is all criminals that looks harder on criminals because they just want to see everyone else burn.
Yeah.
Very funny, like
very good
mirror of reality.
Yeah, and it's really nice, and that's Ennis Lobby essentially. Ennis Lobby is the government courthouse before you get sent to jail, and so they're storming Ennis Lobby. So it starts out with Sanji getting over there, and he's fighting through the train. He picks up Frankie and Usopp. They try to get Robin, but she doesn't want to go for reasons we don't know yet. And then they kind of inform the rest of the Straw Hats where they are, where they're heading, thanks to Sanji leaving a nice little letter behind Tsunami that's inconspicuous. No comments there, buddy? Are you okay, Cory? Are you still mad? But tell me you got another one.
Another shiny weasel.
You did not get another one.
Another shiny weasel. Shiny weasel number freaking 3, baby.
Do you want to trade or?
What ball do you want it in?
I don't care. I put mine in quick ball if that's any indication of how much I cared when I got this.
God, shiny Buizel number freaking 3. God, that's so funny. Master Ball? God, I cannot believe I found 3 shiny weasels. And I'm not hunting weasel. This is not an outbreak. I don't have any sandwiches. I'm just looking for Crabrawler material.
I'm just running
But
around the
yeah,
world because I fucking ruined my Venom off there. Oops.
no, bummer. Um, but yeah, you can have one of these weasel.
Since I'm the game, give it the game, take it away.
Yeah.
You have a
I'll
couple
go ahead and
Christmas presents. There you go.
yeah, Merry Christmas. Now I know what I can trade Kyle for that shiny. What did he offer me? Shiny Sableye. I'm gonna set up the trade now. By the way, the normal late code. Yeah. So yeah. So as we were saying, Robin said.
Sandy picks up the boys, except for Robin on the train. Because she said we don't really know why, but she's like, I don't want to be with you guys anymore. She's like, I don't want to be your friend no more. Okay. You do, sir. No, actually, what they do is they tell Luffy that they found Robin, but she's acting weird. And so the team comes up with a plan. They gotta go to Ennis Lobby and they gotta save Robin. That's the plan. So they ride the rocket train over it.
Love the rocket train, by the way.
It's pretty great. What I like about the rocket train is Iceberg coming to help. Iceberg, like, listen, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for assuming it was you guys, or sorry for getting it for getting it assumed it was you guys because Robin was on the team and stuff. Because Iceberg is a good guy. He's a really nice guy. He does not like Robin, and we don't really know why. And it's revealed that because he knows that she's has some history that we haven't really delved into yet.
Yeah.
And so when Robin comes to the assassination attempt, he's like, "Oh, the Straw Hats were in on it. It was them." But in actuality, it's not. So he's like, "I'm sorry for assuming that. I know you're going to save Robin, even though I don't like her, and I don't like her existence. I'm going to help you guys out."
Yeah. Okay. Do you want one of these like ready to go masquerades?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah. It's like already like EV trained and IV'd and all that. Doesn't have a great Terra type.
Do you have the full decks?
No.
I'll give you a hard one to get.
Okay, thank you. I'll take it.
Annoying new card at the moment.
Yeah, every now and then, I'll be like, let me go get a couple of mons out of the decks, and that's kind of how I've been doing it. I've been doing a lot of breeding though.
I haven't been doing a lot of breeding this game because it's kind of slower, but I do still like it.
Sucks.
Yeah.
I like having it as an option.
But it would also be nice to have the daycare itself as an option.
Yeah, yeah. That's kind of where I stand on it. Really like having it as an option to like, like set to get edge for 10 minutes while I go do something else. Like, sweep or mop, and then come back and be like, okay, time to hatch, and then rinse and repeat. I kind of like that cycle sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know why they just didn't take care of it. Oh well.
Yeah. We're currently talking about the things we wish One Piece did, not the things we wish Pokemon did.
Yeah. And the current art we're talking about, there's nothing else we wish One Piece did because it's really good.
Yeah, this arc is this arc is all the pieces.
So I make their way down this lobby in a big train. The Frankie family joins them because Frankie's been kidnapped, obviously, and they're like, please, we want to set aside our differences. We want to help our leader out. They kind of reveal the backstory that Frankie just showed up one day and just beat the shit out of all the hooligans in the city and essentially made them work for him. So, and that's all the backstory we get from Frankie now.
Yeah, which is also kind of funny because it's a moment that mirrors like them coming to help the Straw Hats because the Straw Hats came and beat the out of them. It's like poetry, it rhymes.
I'm your character devotion. So anyway, long story short, the
Lots of stuff happens on the train. Lots of
crap happens
in the lobby. Oh, there is one thing I want to talk about overall is that this is a really good example of Sanji at his best.
Yes.
Because of like his dedication to his crew members and like it's like portrayed in this arc as like the female ones in particular. But also like or at least at the start it's because like oh he's obsessed with Robin, but it's also like you know that kind of like emotional intelligence thing where like he can tell when something is wrong and he is not the type of person who will let it go when something is wrong.
It's also the trust in the competence of his teammates to, or at least Nami, to show up and read the letter, which he very inconspicuously put there. Like, not many people could tell.
Yeah, such a clever thinker that Sanji.
But it's an interesting insight into Sanji as a character because as we learn, Sanji is very much the kind of person who thinks that he has to do everything himself.
Mm-hmm.
As we learn, that's kind of a detriment to Sanji as a character, and we will delve into a bit later. But it kind of it's a build on the arc a little bit, I think.
Yeah, it's man, Sanji in this arc is so. Everyone in this arc is so good.
Yeah, it's almost like this arc is
Oh.
the best one.
Yeah,
supremely well written. So the rocket train catches up, it gets into Ennis Lobby, and everyone's kind of gathering themselves for the big charge on the Ennis Lobby, and Luffy is nowhere to be seen. Luffy has disappeared. He's already jumped into Ennis Lobby and is just fighting hundreds of men by himself.
yes, just running straight into the thick of it. Into the thick of it. Into the thick of it.
So yeah, and then we get all the other characters coming in. Some interesting stuff that's felt on previously with the Giants. We get to see Usopp play a good part. And he's like, listen, we know those Giants. They aren't in jail. You guys aren't doing anything here. They're just tricking you in the hall. And they join their side.
Well,
good moment from Usopp. Who is actually Usopp is in the Star Star. It's a sniper from confusion.
yeah, you got the characters mixed up.
That just looks so similar.
Really, I don't think so.
Well, I mean, they had a similar. I mean, their faces and finishes. Just the weird nose.
Oh yeah.
So
Wait, is Sniper a part of CP7?
So, they're kind of moving through. Luffy's fighting, and the leader of CP7, who isn't like a fighter, he's just like the government head of the division, is a loser. I forget his name,
Yeah.
and I don't think he needs remembering because he's a loser. And
Yeah.
he thinks everything's going swimmingly because he doesn't listen to his peons. He hears them going, Luffy's defeated 2 people, and he's like, oh, he's only defeated 2 people, when actually the thing is 200. So it's like, he's like, ah ha ha.
Yeah, 2 people who get it. 200 what?
Yeah, so he doesn't think anything bad is happening, so whatever. But eventually, all of the Straw Hats make their way up to the roof. Luffy defeats one of CP7, one of the weaker ones, Luto, who isn't like weak, like he would beat most of the Straw Hats in the fight.
Yeah.
But he's one of the weaker ones to it. Like, he's weaker than most of them, besides the woman, because of course. I mean, there's a sexism in One Piece.
Also, as just like a side note about One Piece in general, thank God they gave up the numbers after this arc. That like the numbers were just like a one-off thing for this arc, like them ranking themselves amongst each other. Thank God that doesn't say a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the weaker members, Luffy defeats him by showing off the Gear 2. He essentially says you're stronger and faster than me and all that stuff, but I felt like it was he does. And Gear 2 is an intelligent thing for Luffy. It's basically him using his rubber powers to... I forget exactly how it works.
So the idea is kind of like he basically like his entire like being, he basically kind of like tenses it up like a twisting rubber band.
Yeah.
But like on like a all of his muscles type of level.
Yeah, and like he
so like
hyper pumps his blood through his system and something like that. Like it was,
yeah.
Which is, it's an interesting thing to think about, the fact that Gear 2 is Gear 2 and Gear 3 is Gear 3, because you think they'd be reversed. Because Gear 2 feels like it uses a lot more of his body's, like, functions, when Gear 3 is just big.
That is true. That is kind of funny, actually.
For as intelligent as Gear 2 is, you know, the heart of One Piece is Luffy Punch Big, so.
Yeah. Luffy Punch Big.
So yeah. So the rest of the Straw Hats gather on the roof. And they're all there. Even Sniper King, the new honorary Straw Hat, I guess.
Yeah, he's there.
And there on the balcony is Robin and Frankie. Who got recaptured because the leader of CP7 has a bone to pick with him, and kind of hates him, and also is only that weaker. And Robin is of course captured still because she's an enemy of the state.
She also wants to be captured because she really does not want anything to happen to the Straw Hats.
She doesn't want her friends to be hurt anymore. She's seen it happen and nothing. So the Straw Hats are all there, and this moment is a great like double panel spread where they're all just standing on the roof. And they're like, Robin, you're our friend, you know, and she's like, don't leave me alone, I want to die. And you're our friend, Robin, think about it. And then we go to a flashback. See Robin's history. So, which has been retroactively ruined by the current arc. Oden, you piece of shit.
Wait, what? What? Wait, really? You think it's been ruined?
I don't think it's been ruined. I do think something stupid happened due to a certain character development. Because Oda can't just let people fucking die.
Wait, who came back?
Saul, the
I'm
big
sure there's
giant.
no one. Wait, is he alive?
Yes. It was revealed by the version of Vegapunk that has the mask when he was talking to them, remember? He was like, I went to the island and I saw a giant who was covered in a bunch of, like, wraps, burn wraps. And he was directing the other giants to save the books. And she was like, Robin was like, whoa, Saul's alive, whoa.
Did I just completely forget that happened? I remember the Giants taking it out. I don't remember that being Saul. I'm also stupid, though. Maybe I just blocked it out because I didn't want that to be the case. Wow, this anime's a lot better when you watch it with only one eye open.
Yeah, it's one of those moments where it's like, what if you just let people die? The story would be a lot more. And it's not even like, so people are like defending it like, who cares if he's alive? Like, it's a good moment for Robin. It's not a bad moment for Robin, of course. But it's also like, why do we need to have that moment?
Yeah.
Robin moved on. And it's not like she can't be happy that her friend is still alive. But it's also like, the moment has passed. Like, and I guess in Oda's mind, the moment has passed, so therefore he can bring back the character. It's just like, whatever. Anyway.
Yeah, I guess I just convinced myself that didn't happen.
Anyway, before ruining the moment, you get the Robin's flashback. Yeah. Where she talks about her time as a child and where she was studying under the archaeologists at Ohara, which is her home village. The scientists at Ohara were the smartest in the land, the smartest scientists of all, the smartest archaeologists of all. They studied history and they were very smart, but they also studied a part of history that the government doesn't like people talking about. It's kind of the first insight into this part of history.
Yeah, because we got like some stuff about it implied in Skypiea.
Yeah.
As we find out about what it is that Robin's doing a little bit, but then here we get like the whole picture.
Yeah, and these archaeologists are studying this 300-year gap in history that the government does not want people to know about for whatever reason. So they're studying it because the archaeologists are curious. And Robin learns a bit about it as well because she has this power. We never really learn how Robin gets the power she has as a kid, which is interesting.
And
the
whole backstory is so tragic. It's like
incredibly tragic backstory. Essentially, the government calls a buster call, which is more or less a nuke on the island, killing everyone in the island because of them. It's the history of this and setting. Robin gets saved, quote unquote, by a couple of people. It's a really touching moment where Robin's mom shows up in the office and she's her mother because she doesn't recognize her. She was so young when she left. Saul Goodman, of course, is there, giant. Saul B. Goodman. He's there, and he dies, quote unquote, because he's killed by AOPG, who we've interacted with before on Ring Ling on Long Island, where he showed up. One of the admirals.
I love him so much. We didn't even talk about him, but I love him.
Yeah, he showed up on Ring Ling. He warned the Straw Hats that associating with Robin would be bad news for them, and this is the payoff for it. It's definitely bad news in this arc. So so he shows up in Robin's backstory, and it showed that he basically allowed her to live because he didn't want to kill her for whatever reason. Probably because he didn't want to kill a child. Like, probably sits bad with most people. he was like, whatever, she's just a kid. She doesn't know anything. I'll just let her go.
Mm-hmm.
And Saul basically requested that he let her go as well before he killed him. So he's like, fine, she can go, but I'll keep my eye on you, Missy. And through other means, it's leaked that she kind of escaped. I don't think he was the one who did that, honestly. So she's put on the watch list as the Demon of O'Hara is the name that she's put on with a bounty around the world. And so she can't stay anywhere, no matter where she stays or who she stays with. They always try to turn her in for the money.
Mm-hmm.
So as a child, she's just running around for basically her whole life as a child, having to live up her own wits. Because she knows too much.
And it's very sad. But
And
it's
it's,
also like one thing I love is this one thing that we did a lot of is this of like older characters be like, you know what, I'm gonna roll the dice here with like this younger character.
with the next
I'm
generation.
roll the dice. Yeah. So one of the first times we did that like mentioned as like a theme is with Aokiji, I think.
Yeah.
With him letting Robin go because like he doesn't necessarily agree with what the Navy's doing, and he's like, you know what, I'll let you go. I'll roll the dice on this. But it's something that comes up a lot more, especially in regards to like Shanks with Luffy, Whitebeard with Ace.
Yeah. It's definitely a
And it's
moment in this. It's definitely a moment that leads to a series. So older characters know that their time isn't up, but it's like they have to give way to the future, to the future generation, so they might as well toss their lot in with the future, a member of the future.
yeah.
What else is there to be shared about her backstory? Really, it's really tragic, and like you can just see that her whole life has been tragic,
Yeah.
and it kind of leads to this moment where it comes back to the present after seeing her backstory, and after Robin saying that she wants to die, she doesn't want to be a person anymore. She just wants the world to forget her, essentially. The Straw Hats are saying, "But you're our friend. We won't forget you. You're important to us." And so finally, this her memories kind of breaks Robin, and she screams out the moment that everyone loves, "I want to live." Or she
And it
screams it from the top
is
of her lungs.
a moment worth loving.
Yeah, it's really great. It's someone who's just like depressed and downtrodden. Their whole life's been absolute shit, and they just want to die, and they're just convinced that they should live. They accept it. It's a little beautiful.
Such a good moment.
Yeah.
And then everything that comes after is good too.
Yeah. It's really great. Like, the CP7 is basically told to go fight the Straw Hats and go deal with them. While we take care of Robin, Frankie tries to coup and escape. He gets up, Robin does not. And so Frankie joins up with the rest of the Straw Hats and fight off CP7.
Yeah, and now we kind of get like the standard affair, like One Piece arc of
Yeah.
uh, like 7 or 8 different fights happening,
Yes. But
all building up and playing off of each other.
right. But the thing I want to point out about this is, unlike a lot of the arcs where it's like the fights have like a theme to them, or the fights like have like some kind of reason why they're being fought. In a lot of arcs, the fights in this arc move their characters' arcs forwards for most of the Straw Hats. Like, each and every fight in this arc has, besides like maybe the Zolo and Usopp fight where they have where they're handcuffed together, which is just like a funny fight. I think besides that one, all the other fights have something to do with each of the characters' arcs in themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like building upon them's characters. So I just kind of want to go through them a little bit. We have Sanji fighting the lady who's gotten a new power to turn people into squeaky clean soap people. Freaky fucking power.
Yeah.
Um,
Really interesting power.
it's freaky, and because Sanji refuses to fight a woman, he refuses to fight her and basically just gets absolutely destroyed by her and embarrassed. And he gets essentially thrown through a couple floors, and he ends up landing at the feet of Nami. And Nami's like, "Sanji, what are you doing?" And he's like, "Well, I can't hit a woman." And she's like, "You're fucking pathetic. Like, what are you doing?" And this is
So
playing
stupid.
into the part of Sanji being the kind of guy who doesn't want to rely on anyone else, but he also doesn't want to fight a woman. So what does he do in this situation? She's like, why don't you ask for help? And he's like, I don't want to, I have to do everything myself essentially. So he just loses in this situation. Like he gets no help because he doesn't want any. So it's like Sanji, this is kind of the start of his character arc of, well, you have to compromise your morals somewhere. And if you don't want it to be on the fighting woman front, which is a fine moral to not compromise, it has to be on the front where you have to have people accept people helping you, you know?
Yeah.
That kind of domino effect starts that arc for Sanji, which is a long time before it gets paid off.
Yeah. One could say it never gets paid off.
No, it gets paid off in Wano.
Ever.
Literally in Wano. The moment in Wano where he calls upon Robin for help.
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
But the other fights, we have Frankie's kind of looking for a refuel, so he's kind of just like in the side for now, but Nami is trying to fight this weird hair guy. He's obviously very strong. And she ends up like swapping out with Chopper, more or less. And as Nami goes to fight the woman that Sanji could not beat, Chopper uses his different points to try to beat him, to try to realize, and he ends up like smartly kind of defeating him, quote unquote.
Yeah.
By trapping him in a fridge.
Yeah. It's like, hooray, victory, but oh wait, we're missing something. We have to get in the fridge now.
Yeah, we have to get the key from him because all the members had a key. We didn't know. So we have to get in there and get a key, so they go in there and grab the key. And isn't that the moment where they just open the door and then like grab it or something and then close it?
Yeah. They like open the door, grab it, and close it.
Yeah, he's like, finally, you decide to fight me again.
And then don't they have to do that multiple times to keep on getting drinks for Frankie too?
I think there was something. Yeah, it was some joke involved with that. But after that, Chopper, what does he go after? He fights the Zipper Man, and the Zipper Man kind of pushes Chopper to his limit. Chopper can't figure out a way to beat him. Does he fight the Zipper Man? I'm getting confused here a bit because of the shot where he's holding the hair man. That's after.
Yeah, I don't.
Because I know Frankie ends up fighting the Zipper Man, so I don't think Chopper fights the Zipper Man.
Yeah,
Let me actually look at this arc. Look at
this.
You have to go
now.
now.
It's going to be time to call it now.
Yeah.
We spent so much time talking about Water 7, but it's also the best arc, so that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, then the moment I want to end off is just like their fights are important to their characters and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we can kind of pick it up afterwards because we still have some stuff to talk about when it comes to Ennis Lobby. So.
And I still need to have my conversation about the 2 to 30 power systems of One Piece.
Yeah. No, I mean we have a good pace to pick it back up on. We'll probably go a little faster through most of the other arcs.
Yeah. Are you free Wednesday, like during the day?
I should be. It depends because my parents just moved down here or up here. And I know my dad wants to do some painting, so I don't know if I'm gonna be helping him with that. One of the days of the
Okay.
week.
Well, if you're free, just let me know. If not, I'll stream something solo or record a video or something.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So thank you so much, Paul, for coming out today.
Let me continue.
One Piece talk. I caught 2 shinies.
Two unique shinies. So
I never forgot to check them for marks.
That's true. I'll check mine for you. I won't tell you if it has a mark.
Okay. Yeah. We'll check. I'm just gonna check right now, and then we'll call the stream. Yeah.
Don't worry, it does not have a mark. Yeah.
Pokemon does not have any. Okay. Well, did the first one that I caught have a mark? Let's check for science.
But yeah, when we come back, we'll pick it up on Ennis Lobby. Finish that up.
Yeah.
We'll go through the rest
Most
of
the other arcs should begin.
Yeah, the next longest part I think for us is gonna be Sabati through Marine.
Yeah.
Which we're just gonna treat as like one big moment. Talk about the moments in that, and then the post arcs are gonna take a little bit longer, but just because they're longer. Like we've been talking about like little arcs here and there. The post the post time skip arcs are all
the size
longer.
of the arc balloons.
Yeah, so they're all
it is a kind of lobby.
Yeah.
/ Water 7.
But they all got a bit longer post time skips, so we're gonna give them more time, but it's not gonna be necessarily more than the time we spent on this because it was just a lot more smaller arcs as opposed to the like one bigger arc we're gonna talk about in each saga. So
yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for coming out today. Be sure to check out my YouTube channel at y_rock and buy a stream.
Buy a stream. Go buy it. Successful day for me. I got a shiny Weasel.
Shiny Weasel? I got a shiny Weasel too. What a coincidence. I also got a shiny Weasel.
Well, you got a shiny Whitley though.
Anyway, are you happy that you can finally talk Mondo with me?
Yeah. What?
God, One Piece is so good.
It's
frustrating, but so good.
If only you were into the darker stuff, then I could get you into some other stuff.
We'll see.
Listen, I'm not lying when I say Chainsaw Man has like very good character rating. Like it's
I believe it. I do need to find more stuff to read because I kind of like not being on Twitter all the time. But I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah. I'm like, people are like, "Oh no, Twitter's gonna die with Elon Musk." And please, kill it, Elon. It'll be the one good thing that you do.
Take it
away. Take it away, Elon. Alright, see ya. Alright, one stream, guys. One stream. I've just actually seen one of those in a while. What the hell? Fun stream. I'm gonna go and eat some pizza. I'm glad to finally be able to talk One Piece with someone though. It's enjoyable to do, especially when it's something that you like. When I asked him to read One Piece a while ago, it was before Wano had kind of started its third act. So my opinion on One Piece as a whole has not changed. I still really like it, but man, I got some things to say about Wano, specifically that third act. I cannot wait to get there. I'm gonna be a little negative Nancy. Wano was not very enjoyable. That third act specifically. The first 2 acts of Wano were great. That third act, though, in my opinion, it was a bit of a disappointment. So we'll get there when we get there. I'll have a lot of things to say about it. I have to collect my thoughts. Also to note that the current arc following Wano, Egghead, We've also talked a bit about it, and it's not impressing me that much. But we'll get to it when we get to it. I have to kind of like because the third act of Wano was so bad. I'm not even saying it's so bad for you. It's hard to say. I want to be critical of it, but I don't want to just be like it sucks. But it did. It really did. Like as someone who really enjoys the series, the third act of Wano was so bad. So I have to get out of my head with the third act of Wano being so bad and not like immediately denounce Egghead for having some of the stuff with the third act of Wano like for just carrying it over. Because Egghead isn't bad so far, but it's like I can feel my negative opinion still holding on the word. So we'll see. I'm not big into some of the stuff that's been happening in recent chapters, is what I'll say. Specifically after Iguana is so fucking awful. We'll get to it when we get to it. Hopefully we can do it next Wednesday. I'm excited to try. I also want to do some individual streams, but I'm kind of been busy even after my classes are over, so I have work now and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot I speak about the tree. So I didn't get to find any shinies. I'm also sad I screwed up the Venomoth thing because I didn't save for getting 60 kills, so it ended up screwing it up, and I didn't want to do it over again, so I just kind of started roaming around. Didn't find anything, but hey, we got a shiny Diesel from Cory, so did you look at that? Did you look at that? Here's my shiny so far. I got the Pyroar, which is the that I got. That's why I tried to avoid the other one, because I found another random one while they were streaming. So with the Pyroar, I got us a Litleo with the limit, which I hunted for. Took me 2 hours maybe. It was fun though. It was an enjoyable hunt because we were like in this little cave that only had like a little bit of room, so it was kind of fun. Varoom, I walked up to a Varoom outbreak, and it was one of the first ones that spawned, and it has a mark, which is crazy. So it's actually like really nice. Because if you don't know how rare marks are, they're very rare. They're not as rare as shinies, but I don't know how rare they are specifically, but I think one individually can be like as rare as a shiny, something like that. But there's so many of them that it's not them. So I got this because I was hunting this, the Forretress, which took me like 5 or 6 hours. It took me a long time. I was hunting that, and the Toad Squirrel walked into my literally. I was looking around for Forretresses, and I was holding still for a second, and this pink Toad Squirrel walked into my fucking camera and looked at me. I was like, huh? I was like, you aren't normally that color, so I got it while hunting this for a couple hours. And then we have this really cool. Which is nice. It's always nice to share shinies. So yeah. That's it for me, gamers. The One Piece talk will continue on Wednesday. Excited to do some more of that with my friend Cory. So I'm excited to talk about Marineford and all that stuff, and get to post times and share some thoughts. So yeah, that's it from me. We're nerds. I hate using the term nerds because people like, I'm a nerd. Ha, nerd, quirky. It's like, no, we're just losers. I don't want to use the term nerd. I want to use the term losers. We're fucking losers. We're talking about fucking Japanese comic books for 3 hours almost. So it's like, we're losers. That's what the term should be. Losers, not nerds. Losers. Because nerds isn't an insult anymore. People like being called that. But yeah, thanks for watching. More One Piece Talk on Wednesday. More Pokemons. Maybe we'll do the next like who knows. But yeah, that's it for me. So yeah, work my time. It's incorrect. Thank you for watching. It has been a joy, a pleasure to stream for you my good sirs and or madams and or however. Yeah. Soon. Goodbye, gamers. Goodbye, goodbye, gamers. Goodbye, goodbye, gamers. Good. Game Bass. Game Bass. Oh, I gotta do it. I forgot. End of the year stream will be coming. I'm glad everyone who's here. No one could hear that. End of the year stream is coming. We'll do it every year. Alright. I'm getting pretty tired. See you later. Goodbye.